This video will change how you handle pressure by teaching clear practical steps you can use right away. You will feel the difference when your heart slows a little and your thoughts stop racing. You will hear how to set a short rule to follow in tense moments and how a single short breath can steady your thinking. You will get simple habits for deciding faster with less stress daily and methods to test choices so you stop guessing. Expect real examples you can try immediately and small routines that build real confidence over time. I will show how to sort facts from feelings, how to narrow options quickly, and how to turn mistakes into useful lessons without blame. If you want to stop reacting and start choosing with calm and purpose, this guide gives clear steps and short practices to get you there. Stay for the whole video and practice along, because the real change happens when you repeat these actions day after day. Chapter 1: Build calm awareness before reacting under intense pressure. Pressure has a way of narrowing the mind. When something important is on the line, the body tightens, the breath becomes shallow, and thoughts rush forward without order. In those moments, most mistakes are not caused by lack of intelligence or ability. They are caused by reacting too quickly. Calm awareness is the skill that stands between a clear decision and a regrettable one. It is the ability to notice what is happening inside and around you before you act. This chapter is about building that skill deliberately so pressure no longer controls your behavior. Calm awareness begins with recognizing a simple truth. You cannot control the arrival of pressure, but you can control how you meet it. Deadlines, conflicts, emergencies, and unexpected problems will always exist. The difference between those who handle them well and those who do not is not luck or talent. It is awareness. Awareness creates space. Space allows choice. Choice leads to better outcomes. Most people confuse speed with strength. They believe reacting quickly shows confidence. In reality, reacting without awareness often shows fear. Fear wants relief. Fear wants the pressure to end as soon as possible, even if that means choosing poorly. Calm awareness does not rush to escape discomfort. It stays present long enough to understand the situation fully. When pressure hits, the body reacts first. The heart rate increases, muscles tighten. The mind starts searching for the fastest exit. If you are unaware of this process, you become a passenger. Awareness turns you back into the driver. The first step is learning to notice physical signals without judging them. Tight shoulders, clenched jaw, shallow breath, restless hands. These are not problems. They are signals. They tell you pressure has arrived. The moment you notice them, awareness has already begun. One practical habit is to use the body as an early warning system. Several times each day, pause for a few seconds and scan your body. Notice where tension gathers. Do not try to fix it immediately. Simply notice. This trains your mind to stay observant rather than reactive. Over time, this habit carries into high-pressure moments automatically. You catch tension early, before it hijacks your decisions. Awareness also means noticing thoughts without believing every one of them. Under pressure, the mind exaggerates. It tells stories about disaster, judgment, or failure. These thoughts feel urgent, but urgency does not make them true. Calm awareness treats thoughts as information, not commands. You observe them the same way you would observe passing traffic. Some are useful. Many are not. A powerful exercise is to silently label thoughts when pressure rises. Use simple labels such as planning, worrying, blaming, or assuming. This creates distance between you and the thought. Distance weakens emotional grip. Once the grip loosens, thinking becomes clearer. You stop confusing imagination with reality. Awareness also requires honesty. Under pressure, people often lie to themselves without realizing it. They tell themselves they have no time to pause, no choice, no control. These beliefs feel real but are rarely accurate. Even a single calm breath creates choice. Even a brief pause restores control. Awareness exposes these false beliefs so they lose power. Consider how this plays out in daily life. A difficult conversation begins. The other person raises their voice. Your chest tightens. Thoughts rush in about being disrespected or misunderstood. Without awareness, words come out sharp and defensive. With awareness, you notice the tension and the thoughts. You pause. That pause changes everything. You respond instead of react. The conversation may still be difficult, but it is less damaging. Often it becomes productive. Calm awareness does not mean suppressing emotion. It means feeling emotion without being ruled by it. Pressure often carries fear, anger, or frustration. These emotions carry useful information. Fear can highlight risk. Anger can signal boundaries. Frustration can point to obstacles. Awareness allows you to extract the information without acting out the emotion blindly. One daily practice that strengthens this skill is intentional stillness. Set aside a few minutes each day to sit quietly. No phone, no distractions. Simply observe your breath and your thoughts. When the mind wanders, notice it and return to the breath. This practice is not about relaxation. It is about training attention. The better you can direct attention in calm moments, the easier it becomes during pressure. Another important aspect of calm awareness is understanding your personal pressure triggers. Everyone has them. Certain situations, people, or types of responsibility activate stronger reactions. Awareness means studying yourself. Reflect on past moments where pressure led to poor decisions. Ask simple questions. What triggered the reaction? What physical signals appeared first? What thoughts followed? This reflection is not about blame. It is about learning patterns. Once patterns are known, they lose their surprise. Preparation is part of awareness. You do not wait for pressure to practice calm. You practice calm so it is available when pressure comes. This includes preparing mentally for situations you know will be challenging. Before entering them, remind yourself of your intention. Stay present. Observe first. Respond second. This simple reminder can change behavior under stress. Calm awareness also involves accepting reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. Pressure often increases when we resist facts. We argue internally with what has already happened. Awareness acknowledges facts quickly. This does not mean approval. It means clarity. Once reality is accepted, energy can be directed towards solutions instead of resistance. In professional settings, calm awareness is a major advantage. Meetings, negotiations, deadlines, and mistakes all create pressure. The person who remains aware gains perspective. They listen better. They speak with purpose. They notice details others miss. Over time, this builds trust and respect. People feel safer around someone who does not panic. In personal life, awareness protects relationships. Many arguments escalate because neither person pauses to become aware of their internal state. Words spoken in reaction can take years to repair. Calm awareness creates restraint. Restraint creates dignity. Dignity preserves connection even during disagreement. One practical technique during intense pressure is to anchor attention in something neutral. This could be the feeling of your feet on the ground, the rhythm of your breathing, or the sensation of your hands. Anchors stabilize attention when the mind is pulled toward fear or urgency. They remind the nervous system that you are present and safe enough to think. Another technique is mental naming of the situation. Silently state what is happening in neutral terms. For example, pressure is rising, a decision is required, time is limited. This removes emotional exaggeration. It frames the situation as manageable rather than overwhelming. Calm awareness also means recognizing when you are reaching cognitive overload. Under intense pressure, decision quality drops after a certain point. Awareness allows you to notice mental fatigue early. When possible, take brief breaks. Even a short pause can restore clarity. When breaks are not possible, simplify. Focus on the next right action rather than the entire problem. Stoic wisdom emphasizes control over inner responses rather than external events. Calm awareness is the foundation of that control. You cannot choose what happens, but you can choose how you meet it. This choice begins with awareness. Building this skill requires patience. You will fail at times. There will be moments when reaction wins. Awareness does not demand perfection. It demands honesty. When you notice a reaction after it happens, awareness has still grown. Reflection after the fact strengthens future response. A useful reflection practice is end-of-day review. Spend a few minutes recalling moments of pressure. Ask what you noticed and what you missed. Acknowledge improvements, no matter how small. This reinforces progress. Over time, awareness becomes more automatic. Calm awareness also improves physical health. Chronic reactivity keeps the body in a constant stress state. Awareness interrupts that cycle. By noticing tension and responding intentionally, you reduce unnecessary strain. This leads to better sleep, digestion, and energy. It is important to understand that calm awareness does not make you passive. It makes you precise. It allows decisive action that is grounded rather than impulsive. Under pressure, clarity is strength. Imagine a moment where everything feels urgent. Phones ringing, people waiting, expectations heavy. Without awareness, the mind fragments. With awareness, attention gathers. You see what matters. You act with purpose. The external pressure remains, but internal stability holds. This stability is built through repeated practice. Small moments matter. Pausing before replying to a message. Taking a breath before answering a question. Noticing tension while standing in line. These are training grounds. Each moment strengthens awareness. One of the most overlooked aspects of calm awareness is self-respect. When you act with awareness, you honor your values. You stop allowing circumstances to dictate your character. This builds inner confidence. Confidence rooted in self-trust is steady even under pressure. Calm awareness also improves learning. Under pressure, mistakes can become teachers instead of threats. Awareness allows you to extract lessons without emotional distortion. This accelerates growth. When pressure is intense, remind yourself of a simple principle. Nothing requires an immediate emotional reaction. This does not mean delay action unnecessarily. It means delay reaction long enough to see clearly. Over time, people will notice your presence. They will notice that you do not escalate situations. They will notice that you remain composed. This influence is powerful. Calm awareness spreads quietly. This chapter is not about eliminating pressure. It is about meeting pressure with clarity. Awareness is the gateway to all other skills in this book. Without it, techniques fail. With it, even simple actions become effective. Every day offers chances to practice. Use them. Notice the body. Observe thoughts. Accept reality. Pause before acting. These small acts build a mind that stays clear when it matters most. Calm awareness is not a personality trait. It is a discipline. A discipline that grows stronger with use. A discipline that protects you from regret and guides you toward better decisions. As you move forward, remember that pressure reveals habits. Build the habit of awareness now, and pressure will reveal strength instead of chaos. This is the quiet advantage that shapes outcomes over a lifetime. Chapter 20: Slow breathing to stabilize thoughts during critical moments. The moment you slow your breath, you take back control of your mind, even when everything feels urgent. Most people underestimate how powerful breathing really is. They think of it as automatic, something that happens in the background, unrelated to thinking or decision-making. In reality, breathing is one of the fastest ways to stabilize your thoughts when pressure is high. When the situation feels critical, your breath is often the first thing that changes. It becomes fast, shallow, and irregular. That change is not random. It sends a clear signal to your brain that danger is present, even when the danger is not physical. Once that signal is sent, clear thinking becomes difficult. Slowing your breath interrupts that signal and restores balance. Under pressure, the mind tends to race ahead. It jumps to outcomes, consequences, and fears. Thoughts overlap and compete for attention. The result is confusion, impulsive reactions, or complete mental shutdown. Slow breathing creates order. It reduces noise. It gives the mind a steady rhythm to follow. When the breath slows, thoughts naturally begin to line up instead of colliding. This works because the body and mind are deeply connected. You do not need to force calm thoughts directly. That often fails. You work through the body instead. When you slow your breathing, your nervous system receives a message that the situation is manageable. The body softens slightly. Muscles release tension. The heart rate settles. With that shift, the mind regains access to reasoning and judgment. One of the biggest mistakes people make during critical moments is trying to think their way out while their body remains in panic mode. That rarely works. Slow breathing is the bridge between panic and clarity. It is simple, direct, and always available. You do not need tools, silence, or ideal conditions. You only need awareness and willingness. A practical approach is to focus on extending the exhale. Long exhales activate the part of the nervous system responsible for calm and control. You do not need to count perfectly or follow a strict pattern. Inhale gently through the nose, then exhale slowly through the mouth or nose. Let the exhale last slightly longer than the inhale. After a few cycles, the body responds. Thoughts begin to slow. The sense of urgency softens. This is especially important in moments where decisions carry consequences. A difficult conversation, a sudden problem at work, an unexpected setback, or a situation where others are watching and waiting. These moments often push people into reactive behavior. A few slow breaths create a pause that protects you from saying or doing something you cannot undo. Slow breathing is not about appearing calm to others. It is about being calm enough inside to choose wisely. Even when the outer situation remains intense, inner steadiness changes how you show up. Your voice becomes more controlled. Your words become more deliberate. Your actions become more precise. Training this skill requires practice outside of high-pressure moments. If you only try to slow your breath when everything is already intense, it will feel difficult. Build familiarity during calm periods. Practice slow breathing while walking, sitting, or before sleep. This trains your body to respond more quickly when stress appears. Familiarity creates access. One effective daily habit is to pause before transitions. Before opening your phone, before entering a meeting, before responding to a message, take 2 or 3 slow breaths. This small act resets your nervous system repeatedly throughout the day. Over time, this becomes automatic. When pressure arrives, your body already knows what to do. Slow breathing also sharpens attention. Under stress, attention narrows too much or scatters completely. With slower breathing, attention steadies. You become more aware of details. You hear what others are actually saying instead of what you assume they mean. You notice options you would otherwise miss. There is also an emotional benefit. Strong emotions often push people to act too quickly. Anger demands release, fear demands escape, anxiety demands certainty. Slow breathing creates enough space to feel these emotions without obeying them. You do not suppress them. You simply do not let them decide for you. In critical moments, the goal is not to eliminate emotion. The goal is to prevent emotion from dominating judgment. Slow breathing supports that goal directly. It keeps the emotional wave from rising too high too fast. This gives reason time to engage. Many people believe they do not have time to breathe when pressure hits. In truth, not breathing costs more time in the long run. Poor decisions create more problems. Regret creates mental weight. Slow breathing takes seconds. Repairing damage can take years. Slow breathing is also a form of self-respect. It signals that you value clarity over chaos. It shows discipline. Discipline is not about force. It is about choosing the right response even when instincts push you elsewhere. In professional environments, this skill separates steady leaders from reactive ones. When others panic, the person who breathes slowly stands out. They become a point of stability. People trust those who remain composed. Trust leads to influence. In personal life, slow breathing prevents unnecessary conflict. Many arguments escalate because neither person pauses long enough to regulate their internal state. A slow breath before responding can change the direction of a relationship. It allows honesty without aggression. Another powerful practice is to pair breathing with physical stillness. When possible, reduce unnecessary movement during pressure. Stillness reinforces calm signals to the brain. Even keeping your feet planted firmly on the ground while breathing slowly increases a sense of control. Slow breathing also improves memory under stress. Panic disrupts recall. Important details disappear. By stabilizing the nervous system, breathing helps information remain accessible. This is crucial during exams, presentations, negotiations, or emergencies. Over time, slow breathing becomes more than a technique. It becomes a habit of meeting life deliberately. You stop rushing internally even when the world moves fast. This habit compounds. Decisions improve. Stress decreases. Confidence grows. It is important to acknowledge that slow breathing will not remove difficulty. Problems will still exist. Pressure will still demand action. What changes is your relationship with that pressure. Instead of being dragged by it, you stand with it. Some moments will still overwhelm you. That is part of being human. The practice is not about never losing control. It is about recovering control faster each time. Each time you remember to slow your breath, even after reacting, progress has been made. One simple reminder to carry with you is this: if you can breathe slowly, you can think clearly enough to choose a better next step. You do not need perfect clarity, you only need enough stability to avoid the worst decision. Slow breathing also strengthens patience. It teaches you to tolerate discomfort without immediate action. This patience is valuable far beyond critical moments. It improves long-term decision-making and resilience. As you continue building this skill, you may notice a shift in how you experience pressure. It no longer feels like an enemy. It becomes a signal to slow down rather than speed up. That shift changes outcomes. Every breath is an opportunity to reset. Every slow exhale is a reminder that urgency does not equal danger. When you learn to breathe with intention, you learn to meet challenges with steadiness instead of panic. This chapter is about reclaiming a natural ability that has always been with you. Slow breathing is simple, but it is not weak. It is one of the most direct ways to stabilize thoughts when it matters most. Practice it daily. Use it deliberately. Trust its effect. When the next critical moment arrives, your breath will be ready before your thoughts are. That readiness is power. Chapter 3: Clarify the real problem before choosing any action. Find the real problem, and every choice that follows becomes simpler, stronger, and more likely to lead to the result you want. When emotions rise and time feels short, the instinct is to act fast, but rushing often targets the wrong issue. Clear decisions start with a clear question. The ability to separate the surface complaint from the underlying cause is a practical skill anybody can learn and apply in daily life. This chapter shows how to ask better questions, gather the right information, and move from noise to useful action. Start by pausing long enough to describe the situation in one plain sentence. Use concrete terms, not moods or interpretations. Say what happened, who was involved, what changed, and what outcome is actually causing pain. A short, factual sentence grounds thinking and limits the runaway stories the mind invents under stress. This practice prevents energy from being wasted on appearances and redirects it toward what matters. Next, identify what you control in this moment. Problems contain many elements, but only some fall inside your influence. List 3 things you can change right now. Make these items specific and small. When everything seems urgent, this step restores agency. Acting on what you can control builds momentum and reduces helplessness. Ask the right question about the problem. Replace vague queries with precise ones. Instead of asking why is everything failing, ask which one step, if fixed, would make the biggest difference. Instead of asking who is to blame, ask what process allowed this to happen. Good questions lead to useful answers. Poor questions keep you stuck. Train your mind to favor clarity over blame. Use a basic diagnostic sequence in stressful moments. First, collect plain facts. Second, test assumptions by checking evidence. Third, list possible causes. Fourth, rank those causes by likelihood and impact. This sequence prevents immediate action based on feelings and creates a path from uncertainty to decision. You do not need to be exhaustive. You only need a short, reliable method to move forward when time is limited. Practice separating symptoms from causes. A symptom is a visible result, such as missed deadlines, angry voices, or decreasing sales. A cause is the underlying mechanism, like unclear expectations, broken processes, or lack of preparation. Acting on symptoms offers temporary relief. Acting on causes fixes the system. Ask which part of the system produced the symptom and start there. Use simple experiments to test your hypothesis. When you think you understand the cause, design a small, fast test that will confirm or disprove your idea. Tests should be cheap and informative. For example, if deadlines are being missed, test a single clarified deadline and a short progress check rather than overhauling the entire workflow. Experiments reduce risk and provide learning quickly. Create a short checklist to apply during heated moments. The checklist can include items such as describe the situation in one sentence, identify 2 facts you know for sure, name 1 assumption you might be making, pick 1 small action you can take now, and decide when you will reassess. A clear checklist stops the mind from defaulting to habit and forces methodical thinking under pressure. Keep the list visible on your phone or workspace and practice using it until it becomes automatic. Watch for common thinking traps that hide the real problem. Confirmation bias seeks evidence that supports your first idea. The availability bias gives too much weight to recent events. The blame trap makes people point to personalities rather than processes. When you notice these traps, explicitly name them and correct course by asking for data or an outside perspective. Recognizing cognitive error is a step toward better decisions. Invite a quick outside view when possible. A single calm colleague, a friend, or a mentor can often spot a pattern you miss. Explain the facts briefly, ask for a single idea, and listen without defending. Outside voices do not need to fix the situation. They only need to help you test whether your framing of the problem makes sense. Use this sparingly in urgent moments, but use it often in complex ones. Document what you discover. A short note written immediately after clarifying the issue prevents memory distortion and provides a reference for future problems. Record your initial diagnosis, what you tested and what you learned. Over time, these notes become a personal database of patterns and solutions that drastically reduce future uncertainty. Develop the discipline of asking two forward-looking questions before any action. First, what is the smallest next step I can take that will move the situation forward? Second, what will tell me quickly whether this step is working? These two questions favor momentum plus feedback. They stop attempts at grand fixes that consume time and create more risk. Small steps with rapid feedback create learning and reduce regret. Use time boxing to resist the urge to overthink. Set a short limit for diagnosis and then decide on the next small action. If the problem still persists after the action, repeat the diagnostic process. Time boxing prevents paralysis and forces iterative problem solving. It also protects attention so that the mind does not wander into catastrophizing. Practice scenario framing when facing recurring problems. Imagine the best likely outcome, the worst likely outcome, and the most likely outcome. Identify one controllable action for each scenario. This mental rehearsal reduces surprise and prepares you to act intelligently when pressure arrives. Rehearsal is not trying to predict everything, but creating options you can use instead of reacting blindly. When other people are involved, focus first on understanding rather than convincing. Ask clarifying questions that surface their priorities, constraints, and perceptions. Paraphrase what you heard to ensure accuracy. This approach often reveals mismatches between what people say and what they expect, which are frequently the true cause of conflict. Communication that clarifies reduces wasted effort. Cultivate honest humility about what you do not know. Acknowledge gaps in information and commit to closing them quickly with targeted questions or brief observation. Pretending to know increases risk. Admitting uncertainty invites better data and sometimes creative help. This stance aligns with disciplined decision-making and fosters trust with others. Work to simplify complex problems by focusing on the one metric that best captures success. Choose that metric and let it guide trade-offs. When multiple goals conflict, identify which one matters most for the moment and act to protect it. This reduces the noise of competing priorities and makes decisions measurable and accountable. Use physical notes or whiteboard sketches to externalize the problem. Seeing elements arranged visually helps the brain compare options and spot missing pieces. A quick diagram often makes relationships obvious that words alone conceal. Externalization is a powerful tool for converting internal confusion into external evidence. After action, take time to review outcomes honestly. Ask what you learned, what signals you missed, and whether the problem was correctly identified. Capture lessons in your notes and adjust your checklist accordingly. Honest review prevents repeating the same mistake and builds confidence in your diagnostic ability. Build confidence through repeated small wins. Each time you correctly identify a problem and solve it, you reinforce your method. Confidence grows not from certainty, but from a track record of practical response. That track record becomes the reason you will trust your process in harder situations. Above all, treat problem clarification as a habit, not a one-time event. Make it routine to pause, ask questions, collect facts, and test assumptions before acting. Habits formed in calm contexts carry into pressure. If you practice framing problems daily, you will access the same clarity when time is short and stakes are high. Problems are not obstacles to avoid, they are information to use. When you begin with careful questioning and disciplined testing, you make decisions that are faster, more accurate, and less costly. This approach turns uncertainty into manageable work and builds steady progress over time. Chapter 14. Separate facts from emotions to reduce decision errors. Clear decisions are born the moment you stop letting emotions disguise themselves as facts. Pressure does not only rush the mind, it colors it. When emotions rise, they tint perception, turning guesses into certainties and feelings into conclusions. Many decision errors happen not because people lack information, but because they mix what they feel with what is true. Learning to separate facts from emotions is one of the most reliable ways to reduce mistakes, especially when stakes are high. Emotions are natural and unavoidable. They signal importance. Feeling confident does not guarantee correctness. Facts exist independent of how you feel. The skill here is not to deny emotion, but to place it in the right position, as input rather than authority. Begin by defining what a fact actually is. A fact is observable, measurable, and verifiable by others. It answers questions like what happened, when it happened, who was involved, and what result occurred. An emotion is a response inside you. It answers how you feel about what happened. Confusion arises when these two are blended into one statement. Clarity returns when they are separated. A practical habit is to write or say two separate sentences when under pressure. One sentence lists facts only. The other names emotions only. For example, the report was submitted late by 1 day as a fact. I feel angry and concerned about reliability as an emotion. Keeping them separate prevents the emotion from rewriting the fact into a story that is larger and more dangerous than reality. Under stress, the mind tends to create meaning quickly. It fills gaps with assumptions. It predicts intent. It anticipates outcomes without sufficient evidence. This is efficient for survival but risky for decision-making. Separating facts from emotions slows this process just enough to regain accuracy. One way to practice this is through neutral language. Replace charged words with plain ones. Instead of saying this situation is a disaster, say the deadline was missed and consequences may follow. Neutral language removes emotional weight without ignoring seriousness. It allows the brain to work with information rather than reaction. Another effective method is to ask evidence-based questions. What do I know for sure? What am I assuming? What evidence supports this belief? What evidence contradicts it? These questions force the mind to sort data from feeling. They also expose weak assumptions early, before they guide action. Pay close attention to words like always, never, everyone, and no one. These words often signal emotional reasoning rather than factual thinking. Reality is rarely absolute. When you notice these words in your internal dialogue, pause and replace them with specifics. Precision reduces distortion. Emotions also change over time while facts remain stable. This difference is useful. When you feel overwhelmed, remind yourself that emotions are temporary states. Decisions made as if emotions are permanent often age poorly. By grounding choices in facts, you protect yourself from acting on feelings that will pass. This skill is especially important in conflict. During disagreement, emotions escalate quickly. Each side feels justified. Separating facts from emotions allows you to communicate without inflaming the situation. You can acknowledge feelings without surrendering to them. You can say, I understand this is frustrating, while also stating the facts as they stand. This approach preserves respect and keeps discussion productive. In professional settings, this discipline builds credibility. Leaders who distinguish between data and reaction earn trust. They do not ignore morale or sentiment, but they do not let mood dictate strategy. This balance leads to consistent decision quality even when pressure is intense. In personal life, separating facts from emotions protects relationships. Many arguments stem from emotional conclusions treated as truth. Assuming intent without evidence damages trust. Stating facts clearly while owning feelings reduces misunderstanding and resentment. A useful daily exercise is fact-checking your strongest reactions. When you feel a surge of anger or fear, ask what fact triggered this feeling. Then ask whether the emotion matches the size of the fact. This comparison often reveals overreaction early, before it becomes behavior. Journaling can also strengthen this skill. Write about a stressful event in 2 columns. One column lists facts, the other lists emotions and interpretations. Seeing them side by side trains the mind to distinguish between them. Over time, this separation becomes automatic. It is important to understand that emotions still matter. They carry information about values, boundaries, and priorities. The goal is not emotional suppression. The goal is emotional placement. Emotions should inform decisions, not command them. Stoic thinking emphasizes control over judgment rather than control over events. Separating facts from emotions is an act of disciplined judgment. It allows you to respond according to values instead of impulse. This discipline is built through repetition, not theory. Another practical tool is to delay labeling situations. Labels like failure, betrayal, or success are emotionally loaded and often premature. Delay labels until facts are fully examined. This prevents early conclusions from shaping behavior. Watch for emotional contagion. In groups, emotions spread quickly. Panic can pass from one person to another even when facts do not justify it. When you notice group emotion rising, return to facts. Ask for numbers, timelines, and concrete outcomes. This grounds the group and reduces collective error. Stress often narrows attention. It focuses on threats and ignores context. Separating facts from emotions widens perspective. It allows you to see both risks and resources. This balanced view supports better decisions. Another helpful practice is to imagine explaining the situation to a neutral third party. How would you describe it without emotional language? This mental exercise forces clarity and exposes exaggeration. Over time, this skill builds emotional resilience. You become less reactive because you trust your ability to sort signal from noise. Confidence grows from knowing you can feel strongly without losing clarity. When decisions are reviewed later, those based on facts tend to hold up better. Even if outcomes are unfavorable, the process remains sound. This reduces regret and self-blame. You can accept results without questioning your character or intelligence. Separating facts from emotions also improves learning. Mistakes analyzed factually produce insight. Mistakes analyzed emotionally produce defensiveness. Learning accelerates when emotion is acknowledged but not allowed to distort analysis. In moments of high pressure, remind yourself of a simple rule. Feel fully, decide calmly. This rule honors human experience while protecting judgment. As you practice this skill, you will notice a subtle shift. Emotions still arise, but they no longer overwhelm. Facts become anchors. Decisions become steadier. Pressure becomes manageable. This chapter is about clarity, not coldness. It is about accuracy, not denial. When you respect facts and emotions each for what they are, you reduce errors and increase wisdom. Every situation becomes easier to navigate when you know what is true and what you feel about it. That distinction is the foundation of sound judgment. Chapter 50. Define clear priorities when time and stakes feel high. When everything feels urgent, the person who knows what matters most stays ahead while others scatter. High pressure does not only come from lack of time. It comes from too many demands competing for attention at once. When stakes rise, the mind tries to handle everything equally, and that is where mistakes multiply. Clear priorities cut through that chaos. They tell you where to focus your energy, what to protect, and what can wait. Without priorities, effort is wasted. With priorities, even limited time becomes enough. Under pressure, urgency lies. It makes every task feel critical. Emails feel like emergencies. Requests feel non-negotiable. Emotions push for immediate response. The truth is simple. Not everything deserves the same level of attention. Some actions move outcomes forward. Others only create motion without progress. The skill is learning to tell the difference quickly. Start by defining the single outcome that truly matters in the moment. not the ideal outcome. Not everything that would be nice to achieve. Ask what result would make the biggest difference if achieved right now. This question forces focus. It prevents dilution of effort. When you know the outcome, priorities become clearer. This does not mean it is unimportant forever. It means it is not important in this moment. Clarity is about timing, not neglect. Pressure often tempts people to multitask. Multitasking feels productive but reduces quality and increases error rates. Priorities demand sequence, not simultaneity. Decide what comes first, then second, then later. Even under severe time limits, sequence improves results. A practical way to set priorities fast is to ask 3 questions. What must be done now? What can wait without serious consequence? What can be ignored for the moment? Answer honestly. This immediately reduces mental load and restores control. Clear priorities also protect decision quality. When you know what you are protecting, choices become easier. You stop weighing every option equally. You judge options based on whether they support your priority. This reduces overthinking and speeds action. Emotional pressure often shifts priorities unconsciously. Fear pushes toward safety even when growth is needed. Pride pushes toward image even when substance matters more. Guilt pushes toward pleasing others even when your responsibility lies elsewhere. Defining priorities consciously counters these emotional pulls. One effective habit is to define non-negotiables in advance. These are values or outcomes you refuse to sacrifice even under pressure. Examples include integrity, safety, long-term trust, or health. When pressure rises, non-negotiables act as anchors. They prevent short-term thinking from causing long-term damage. In work situations, clear priorities reduce conflict. Many disagreements arise because people assume different priorities. State yours clearly. Ask others to state theirs. Alignment reduces friction. Misalignment becomes visible and manageable rather than hidden and explosive. In personal life, priorities protect relationships and well-being. When time is scarce, knowing who and what comes first prevents regret. It allows you to say no without guilt and yes without resentment. Boundaries become clearer when priorities are defined. Another useful practice is to limit priorities to a small number. 1 main priority and 2 supporting ones are usually enough. More than that creates confusion. Simplicity increases execution. Under pressure, perfectionism becomes dangerous. Trying to optimize everything wastes time. Priorities allow you to accept good enough in low-impact areas while aiming for excellence where it matters. This balance keeps progress moving. Use deadlines strategically. Assign short decision deadlines to priority items. This prevents endless deliberation. Once the deadline passes, act with the best available information. Waiting for certainty under pressure often leads to missed opportunities. It is also important to revisit priorities as conditions change. What mattered an hour ago may no longer matter now. Flexibility does not mean lack of discipline. It means adjusting focus based on new facts. Regular quick reassessment keeps priorities relevant. Physical cues can help reinforce priority focus. Keep a short written list visible. Write the main priority in bold. This external reminder prevents distraction when interruptions occur. When something new demands attention, check it against the list before responding. Clear priorities also reduce stress. Much stress comes from trying to do too much at once. When you consciously choose what matters, you release the burden of everything else. Mental energy frees up. Focus deepens. Pressure situations often involve other people pushing their priorities onto you. Not every request deserves compliance. Evaluate requests against your defined focus. Declining becomes easier when you are guided by purpose rather than impulse. Another key aspect is understanding trade-offs. Every choice sacrifices something. Priorities make those sacrifices intentional rather than accidental. You choose what to give up instead of losing it unknowingly. Reflection strengthens this skill. After intense situations, review whether your actions matched your priorities. Notice mismatches without judgment. Adjust your approach next time. This feedback loop builds confidence and clarity. Clear priorities also enhance leadership. People follow those who know where they are going. Even if decisions are difficult, clarity inspires trust. Unclear priorities create hesitation and doubt. One powerful mental frame is to ask what decision future you would thank you for. This shifts focus from immediate relief to lasting value. Priorities rooted in long-term thinking reduce regret. When stakes are high, emotions amplify the fear of choosing wrong. Priorities reduce that fear by narrowing options. Instead of asking what is best overall, you ask what best serves the priority. This simplifies evaluation. Over time, defining priorities becomes faster. You learn patterns. You recognize what truly moves outcomes. Experience combined with reflection sharpens instinct. It is important to remember that priorities are not excuses to avoid responsibility. They are tools to direct responsibility effectively. Choosing focus is not neglect. It is discipline. In moments when everything demands attention, return to a simple rule. If I could only do one thing right now, what would it be? Answer honestly and act. That action often unlocks progress elsewhere. Clear priorities transform pressure from a threat into a test of discipline. That choice guides behavior, even when conditions are difficult. Master this skill and pressure will no longer scatter your attention. It will sharpen it. When time is short and stakes are high, focus becomes your greatest advantage. Chapter 6c creates simple rules to guide choices under stress. Decide now the rules that will protect your judgment when everything feels chaotic. Stress sharpens consequences and dulls clarity, which is why having a small set of personal rules is the difference between consistent action and costly impulse. Rules cut down on mental friction by transforming repeated decisions into automatic choices, so energy remains for novel problems that require real thinking. These rules are not restrictive punishments. They are practical guardrails designed to preserve focus, speed, and integrity when mental resources are limited. Building them ahead of time prevents frantic improvisation and reduces the risk of regret. Start by choosing rules that reflect your values and outcomes rather than momentary convenience. Rules tied to core priorities hold up under pressure because they answer the deeper question of what you will protect when everything demands attention. Effective rules are brief, clear, and easy to recall under stress. Aim for no more than 5 rules so they remain actionable rather than aspirational. Simplicity increases use. Make rules specific and behaviorally focused. Vague rules are easy to forget. Replace broad intentions with concrete actions. For example, decide beforehand to pause for a set number of breaths before responding to criticism. Commit to asking one clarifying question before making a major decision, and require a 24-hour check before spending beyond a preset amount. The more precise the rule, the less space there is for emotion to twist it under pressure. Design rules that enforce minimal friction when followed. If a rule is complicated or costly, it will be ignored when the situation becomes urgent. Opt for rules that are easy to implement immediately. A rule like always name one fact and one feeling before speaking takes seconds and dramatically improves communication. Small, low-friction rules win the day because they are used consistently. Pair each rule with a clear trigger so you know exactly when to apply it. Triggers can be external events like a missed deadline or internal signals such as a racing heart. When a trigger appears, the rule should pop into action automatically. This association between trigger and rule turns deliberate practice into immediate habit under pressure. Use default decisions to reduce overload. Defaults are pre-chosen options that you accept unless there is a strong reason to change them. For example, set a default response for urgent emails during high-pressure times, or decide to follow a rapid assessment protocol for technical problems. Defaults free up decision energy for the most important judgments. Create escape clauses that preserve flexibility without opening the door to avoidance. A rule should include a clear exception and the evidence required to use it. This prevents rules from becoming rigid dogma while stopping them from being dismissed at the first sign of discomfort. Define what counts as sufficient reason to bypass a rule and who must agree when the stakes are large. Test your rules in low-risk settings before relying on them in crisis. Practice strengthens trust in the rule and reveals weaknesses that would appear under stress. Role-play a sudden problem with a colleague or simulate a heated conversation and apply the rule. These rehearsals speed up use and reduce resistance when the rule is truly needed. Document the rationale behind each rule so you can revisit it without emotion later. Writing down why a rule exists helps distinguish principle from preference. That clarification prevents abandonment when results are imperfect. Over time, review which rules consistently help and which need refining. Share rules with people you depend on when appropriate. Teams and families operate better when expectations are explicit. If everyone knows the protocol for urgent situations, confusion and blame decrease. Publicly stated rules create mutual accountability and reduce temptation to act impulsively for short-term gain. Avoid rules that attempt to control other people. Effective personal rules govern your responses, not other actors. Commit to what you will do and avoid prescriptions for how others must behave. This focus preserves agency and reduces frustration. Keep rules measurable so you can assess whether they work. Define simple indicators that show if a rule improved outcomes. For instance, track how often a pause prevented a reactive reply or whether a spending rule cut impulse purchases. Measurement turns vague hope into concrete feedback. Guard against creating rules that satisfy identity rather than effectiveness. A rule that exists to make you feel principled but fails to improve decisions is a liability. Test rules by their effects on clarity, speed, and alignment with long-term goals. Discard or adapt rules that produce more noise than benefit. Balance prevention rules with action rules. Prevention rules reduce the chance of error, while action rules speed effective response. An example of a prevention rule is never promise without a specific plan. An action rule might require naming the next 3 steps within 5 minutes of recognizing a problem. Both types work together to reduce indecision and wasted effort. Use breathing or brief grounding as a universal precondition for rule activation. Even when rules are simple, they still face the obstacle of emotional escalation. A short physical anchor before applying any rule creates the minimal calm needed to follow it. This small addition increases adherence in the moments that matter most. Design rules to preserve reputation and trust, not merely short-term advantage. When pressure tempts, cutting corners a rule that prioritizes honesty and timely communication protects long-term relationships. Trust is easier to maintain than to rebuild, and rules that protect it pay dividends across many situations. Avoid rule proliferation. Resist the temptation to add new rules in the heat of a bad outcome. New rules created from anger or fear often solve the wrong problem. Instead, allow time to pass, evaluate what actually happened, and then craft a rule based on measured insight. Patience in rule creation prevents clutter and regret. Teach simple rules to your future self through visible cues. Place short reminders where you will see them during stressful moments. A one-line rule on a phone background, a note on a monitor, or a card in a wallet serves as a prompt. These cues reduce reliance on memory and increase the chance a rule is used when necessary. When working with others, co-create rules for shared stress situations. Collaborative rules increase buy-in and reduce conflict because everyone helped define the boundary. A jointly agreed emergency protocol or meeting rule prevents escalation and speeds resolution. Periodically audit your rules for relevance and fairness. Life changes and rules that once fit may become obsolete or harmful. Schedule a regular review to retire outdated rules, adjust thresholds, and ensure fairness across contexts. This maintenance keeps your system lean and effective. Make at least one rule explicitly about decisional speed. Under pressure, the urge to delay can be as damaging as the urge to act. A time-bound decision rule, such as act within a fixed window with the available information, forces forward motion while protecting against paralysis. Build redundancy into crucial rules when possible. Pair a personal rule with a backup, such as a teammate or an automated system that enforces the standard. Redundancy reduces single points of failure and ensures the rule holds even when you are compromised. Be ready to explain your rules simply and calmly when challenged. Defensiveness undermines their purpose. A short, clear reason for why a rule exists will improve acceptance and make enforcement easier when necessary. Record outcomes and update rules based on results. Use concrete examples to test whether a rule delivered the intended protection. If not, modify the rule's wording, trigger or exception, and continue iterating. Treat this as an ongoing refinement process rather than a one-time declaration. Recognize that rules are tools for freedom, not constraint. When applied, they free attention, reduce regret, and increase reliability. This freedom creates space for creative problem solving because basic choices are handled automatically and consistently. Finally, adopt the discipline to follow rules even when they feel inconvenient. The first moments of pressure will test resolve. Adherence in those first tests builds the habit and validates the rule. Over time, following well-chosen rules becomes the default response, and your decision quality under stress becomes a predictable asset. Chapter 7. Pause briefly to prevent impulsive choices and regret. A single pause can save years of damage that one impulsive moment would have caused. Impulsive choices rarely come from bad intentions. They come from speed. Pressure compresses time and the mind mistakes urgency for necessity. In that compressed state, action feels safer than waiting, even when waiting for a few seconds would completely change the outcome. Learning to pause briefly is not hesitation. It is discipline. It is the skill of creating a small gap between stimulus and response where judgment can return. Most regrets share a common origin: words spoken too quickly, messages sent without reflection, decisions made while emotions were peaking. The pain that follows is not usually about the difficulty of the situation, but about the knowledge that a pause would have changed everything. This chapter is about mastering that pause so it becomes instinctive even when emotions demand speed. Impulses are not random. They are driven by the desire to relieve discomfort. Anger wants release. Fear wants escape. Excitement wants immediate reward. The pause interrupts this pattern. It allows discomfort to exist without being obeyed. That ability alone separates reactive living from deliberate living. The pause does not need to be long. It does not need to be dramatic. Even a few seconds of stillness can reset direction. The power comes from consistency, not duration. A brief pause creates awareness. Awareness restores choice. Choice prevents regret. One practical way to train this is to associate the pause with physical stillness. When an urge to act arises, stop moving for a moment. Plant your feet. Relax your hands. This physical pause sends a signal to the nervous system that action is not required immediately. The mind follows the body. Another effective method is to delay response by one breath. Before replying, sending, or deciding, take a slow, controlled breath. This breath is not about calming down completely. It is about interrupting the automatic reaction loop. That interruption is enough to change behavior. Impulsive decisions often feel justified in the moment. The mind provides convincing reasons to act now. These reasons fade quickly after the fact. The pause exposes this illusion. It allows reasons to be examined rather than accepted blindly. This skill is especially important in communication. Many relationships are damaged by immediate responses driven by emotion. A brief pause before speaking allows tone to soften and words to be chosen with care. The message becomes clearer. The damage is avoided. In professional settings, the pause protects credibility. Reacting publicly under stress can undermine trust. Pausing briefly shows composure and confidence. People notice restraint. It signals leadership even when answers are not immediate. The pause also improves accuracy. Under pressure, the first idea is rarely the best one. It is simply the loudest. Pausing allows alternative options to surface. Better choices often appear when the initial rush settles. A useful mental cue is to remind yourself that no decision is improved by panic. This reminder does not eliminate urgency but reframes it. Urgency demands attention. Panic demands surrender. The pause refuses surrender. Practice the pause in small, low-risk situations. Pause before answering routine questions. Pause before making minor purchases. Pause before reacting to small annoyances. These repetitions train the nervous system. When a high-stakes moment arrives, the pause will already be familiar. Another helpful practice is to set personal delay rules. For example, wait 10 minutes before sending emotionally charged messages or sleep on major decisions whenever possible. These delays are not avoidance, they are safeguards. The pause also allows values to re-enter awareness. In impulsive moments, values disappear behind emotion. Pausing gives values time to resurface. You remember who you want to be, not just what you feel. It is important to understand that pausing may feel uncomfortable. The urge to act can be intense. Discomfort does not mean danger. It means habit is being challenged. Tolerating that discomfort builds self-control. Some situations truly require immediate action. Even then, a micro pause improves execution. A single breath before acting sharpens focus and reduces error. The pause adapts to context. Regret often comes from realizing that a different version of yourself could have acted. The pause allows that version to appear in real time rather than in hindsight. Another benefit of pausing is improved listening. When you pause, instead of reacting, you hear more clearly. You notice what is actually being said rather than what you expect or fear. This leads to better understanding and fewer misunderstandings. The pause also reduces mental exhaustion. Constant reactivity drains energy. Pausing conserves it. Decisions made deliberately require less emotional recovery afterward. A simple reflection practice strengthens this skill. At the end of the day, recall moments where you paused and moments where you did not. Notice the difference in outcomes. This reinforces the value of restraint without self-criticism. It is useful to remember that speed feels powerful, but restraint is stronger. Anyone can react. Few can pause. That difference shapes character and outcomes over time. Pausing does not mean suppressing feelings. Feelings still exist. They simply do not dictate action. This distinction preserves authenticity while preventing harm. In moments of conflict, pausing can de-escalate tension instantly. Silence creates space. Space invites calm. Calm allows resolution. The pause also supports long-term goals. Impulsive actions often serve short-term relief at the expense of long-term progress. Pausing aligns actions with direction rather than mood. Over time, the pause becomes less effortful. What once required conscious restraint becomes natural. This is how habits of self-mastery form. It is worth recognizing that society often rewards speed and reaction. Choosing to pause is a quiet rebellion against chaos. It is a commitment to quality over immediacy. When you feel pressure pushing you to act now, treat that feeling as a cue to pause. The stronger the push, the more valuable the pause. The pause is available in every situation. It costs nothing. It requires no permission. It only requires awareness and willingness. This chapter teaches that you do not need more willpower. You need a moment of space. That space changes everything. By practicing brief pauses consistently, you reduce impulsive choices and the regret that follows. You build a reputation with yourself for reliability. You trust your actions because they are chosen rather than forced. In the end, the pause is an act of respect for your future. It is a promise that you will not sacrifice long-term peace for short-term relief. That promise, honored repeatedly, becomes strength under pressure. Chapter 80. Ask better questions to unlock clearer thinking fast. The quality of your decisions rises immediately when the quality of your questions improves. Under pressure, the mind defaults to familiar questions that lead nowhere. Why is this happening to me? Who caused this? How do I make this stop right now? They direct attention toward options, facts, and forward movement. When time is short and stakes are high, asking the right question is often more valuable than having the right answer. Questions shape perception. The brain follows the question it is given. Ask a poor question and the mind delivers poor guidance. Ask a clear, useful question and the mind organizes information efficiently. This is not theory. It is a practical lever you can pull in real time. Clear thinking under pressure is not about thinking harder. It is about thinking differently through better questions. Start by noticing the first question that appears when pressure hits. It usually reveals your emotional state. A question driven by fear seeks safety. A question driven by anger seeks justification. A question driven by pride seeks validation. None of these questions are wrong, but they are incomplete. Awareness gives you the chance to replace them with questions that serve your goals. Effective questions are specific and actionable. They point toward next steps rather than explanations. Replace why questions with what questions. What is happening right now? What do I know for sure? What is the smallest step that improves this situation? These questions shift attention from rumination to action. Another powerful shift is moving from outcome obsession to process clarity. Under stress, people ask, will this work or will I fail? Better questions focus on process. What would a reasonable next move look like? What information do I need to decide? What constraint matters most right now? Process questions calm the mind because they are answerable even when outcomes are uncertain. Use questions to separate signal from noise. Ask which detail matters most. Ask which part of this problem I am actually responsible for. Ask what can wait without serious consequence. These questions reduce overload and help prioritize quickly. Questions also help test assumptions. Pressure encourages assumptions to harden into beliefs. Ask, what assumption am I making here? Ask how I would view this if I were calmer. Ask what evidence would change my mind. These questions reopen flexibility and prevent tunnel vision. A fast clarity technique is to ask one grounding question aloud or silently. What is required of me in this moment? This question cuts through complexity and centers responsibility. It replaces speculation with duty and directs attention to action within your control. In conversations, questions are tools for de-escalation and understanding. Instead of defending, immediately ask for clarification. What outcome are you looking for? What concerns you most about this? What would success look like to you? These questions lower tension and reveal shared ground. Questions also protect you from false urgency. Ask, what happens if I wait 10 minutes? Ask, what decision would still make sense tomorrow? Often the pressure to act instantly dissolves under this scrutiny. When it does not dissolve, the question still sharpens readiness. Under pressure, avoid questions that begin with should. Should creates judgment and guilt. Replace should with could. What could I do next? What could improve this slightly? This language shift opens options and reduces internal conflict. Ask questions that invite learning rather than perfection. What can I learn from this? What did I miss? What would I try differently next time? Learning questions turn setbacks into resources and maintain momentum. When facing complex decisions, ask comparative questions. Compared to what? Compared to doing nothing. Compared to the alternative. These questions anchor evaluation and prevent exaggeration. Use constraints to improve questions. Ask what is possible with the resources I have now. Ask what I can do in the next 5 minutes. Constraints focus creativity and prevent paralysis. A useful habit is to keep a short list of go-to questions memorized for high-pressure moments. These are not scripts, they are prompts. Examples include what matters most right now, what is the simplest explanation, what action reduces risk and increases learning. Having these questions ready saves time when thinking feels tight. Questions can also regulate emotion. Ask what I am feeling and why. Naming emotion reduces its intensity and frees cognitive space. Then ask what response aligns with my values. This pairing respects emotion while guiding behavior. In leadership and teamwork, questions create alignment. Ask who owns this decision. Ask how we will measure progress. Ask what could go wrong and how we would respond. These questions clarify roles and expectations quickly. Beware of rhetorical questions that hide conclusions. Questions that already contain an answer stop thinking. Replace them with open questions that invite exploration. Openness restores adaptability. Practice asking questions in calm moments so they surface under stress. During routine tasks, ask, how could this be simpler? Ask, what would make this clearer? This builds a questioning habit that becomes automatic. Questions can also protect ethics under pressure. Ask what decision I would be comfortable explaining. Ask how this affects trust. Ask what I would advise someone I respect to do. These questions guard against shortcuts that damage integrity. Use writing to refine questions when time allows. Writing slows thought and exposes vagueness. A clear written question often reveals the path forward without further analysis. Remember that the goal is not to ask many questions, but to ask the right one at the right time. One good question can unlock clarity faster than hours of debate. When you feel stuck, ask a movement question. What can I do to change the situation slightly? Action generates information and reduces anxiety. questions that lead to motion are powerful. Questions also help manage expectations. Ask what is realistic given the constraints. Ask what trade-off I am accepting. This realism prevents disappointment and aligns effort with reality. In moments of high emotion, ask a distancing question. How will this matter in a week? How would a neutral observer describe this? Distance reduces distortion without dismissing importance. Asking better questions is a skill built through repetition and reflection. After decisions, review which questions you asked and which you skipped. Notice which ones helped. Keep those. Clear thinking under pressure is not about eliminating doubt. It is about directing attention. Questions are the steering wheel. Hold it with intention. When you train yourself to ask better questions, you become faster without being reckless and calmer without being passive. You unlock clarity not by force but by guidance. Carry this simple truth with you. Your mind will answer whatever question you ask it. Choose questions that lead you where you want to go. Chapter 90. Break big decisions into small controllable steps. Break any overwhelming choice into a tiny next step and begin now, because motion beats paralysis. Big decisions feel heavy because the mind sees the whole mountain at once and assumes every part must be solved immediately. That perception creates paralysis and fear. The cure is to shrink the decision into pieces you can manage one at a time. Small controllable steps reduce risk, increase clarity, and produce momentum. Momentum then creates information which improves the next step. This approach converts uncertainty into manageable work rather than an insurmountable test. Begin by naming the actual end result you want in one short sentence. Keep that sentence strictly focused on the outcome, not the method. A clear endpoint prevents wandering and makes it easier to choose what the first step should be. When the finish line is visible, even at a high level, the path becomes easier to map. Next, identify the smallest possible action that moves you toward that outcome. This action should be something you can complete in under an hour. If you cannot find one, do something that creates useful information about the problem. The goal of the first step is learning, not perfect progress. Tiny tests lower cost and increase learning speed. Turn these steps into a sequence where each item yields feedback. Each completed task should answer a question or reduce an assumption. Design steps to be informative. A good step either confirms a hypothesis, eliminates a possibility, or provides a concrete constraint for the next action. This habit of building for information reduces guesswork and speeds intelligent adaptation. Use the 2-inch rule for decision-making. If something can be advanced by a small, straightforward move, take it immediately. These minimal actions accumulate and remove undergrowth from complex choices. They also reduce anxiety by replacing abstract dread with concrete activity. Time box each step. Give yourself a short, fixed window to perform the work and gather the result. Timeboxing prevents perfectionism from expanding a small task into an all-day ordeal. It also forces prioritization and makes the quality of information explicit. If the allotted time expires, evaluate what you learned and plan the next short step before returning to work. Create clear success criteria for every small action. Define in advance what counts as a useful outcome. Success might be a simple data point, a returned call, a partial prototype, or a short list of options. Naming criteria before acting prevents rationalization and clarifies when to stop or move on. When possible, sequence steps from lowest cost to highest cost. Early wins should be cheap to execute and easy to reverse. This sequencing reduces exposure and preserves options while still delivering progress. Reversibility is a key principle when stakes are uncertain because it allows rapid correction. Use binary experiments to reduce complexity. Frame actions as tests of yes or no. For example, instead of asking which of 3 options is best, ask whether one option meets a minimum threshold. If it does, proceed, otherwise discard it. Binary outcomes simplify decisions and accelerate filtering. Document what each step taught you immediately after completing it. A short note of 1 to 3 sentences preserves memory and sharpens pattern recognition. Over time, these notes become a playbook of what works in similar situations. Decision quality improves when you rely on a personal database of tested steps rather than on repeated guesses. Delegate or share steps that someone else can complete faster or better. Breaking a decision into parts makes delegation natural. Identify tasks that require your unique judgment and tasks that are executional. Free your attention for the former by assigning the latter. Delegation increases speed and reduces your cognitive load. Build guardrails around the process to limit downside. Establish a stop-loss or a maximum acceptable cost for the sequence of steps. Decide in advance the conditions that require halting or re-evaluating the plan. These boundaries preserve optionality and protect against runaway commitments. Adopt the habit of deciding the next step at the end of each session. Before leaving a task, ask what immediate small action you will take first when you return. This reduces friction and prevents stall when you resume work. A clear next step makes re-entry fast and prevents wasted time. When emotions complicate the choice, keep the steps pragmatic and externally verifiable. Emotional urgency often pushes for sweeping moves. Counter this by choosing a small physical action you can demonstrate to others. Tangible progress deflates emotional pressure and restores perspective. Use checklists for repeated complex decisions. When similar choices arise regularly, a short checklist of the next 3 steps standardizes process and reduces error. Checklists free mental bandwidth for judgment calls that actually require discretion rather than for routine sequencing. Practice breaking problems with real examples. Take a recent daunting decision and map out 5 micro steps you could take within a week. Test 2 of them and record what you learn. This rehearsal builds skill faster than theory because it strengthens your ability to see practical next moves under pressure. Lean on templates for common scenarios. Prepare a few outline templates such as rapid assessment, hiring due diligence, and emergency response. Each template lists the smallest high-impact actions for that context. Templates cut planning time and make the first step obvious in moments when thinking is strained. Adopt a one-step then reflect routine. After each action, pause briefly and ask what changed, what was confirmed, and what remains uncertain. That short reflection converts motion into useful data and prevents mindless iteration. It keeps the process intentional rather than merely busy. Use simple math to choose between micro options. Estimate roughly the expected value of each small action by multiplying likely benefit by probability and dividing by time or cost. Even rough comparisons highlight the most informative experiments and prevent equal weighting of choices that differ dramatically in usefulness. Create a visual backlog of small steps. A simple column labeled "to doing done" helps your brain externalize progress. Crossing items off provides psychological momentum and clarifies what remains. Visual cues reduce internal noise and keep attention focused. Guard against the trap of premature optimization. Waiting to perfect early steps often delays learning. Accept that early iterations will be rough and build rapid cycles of improvement instead. Early feedback is far more valuable than polished appearances that hide uncertainty. When accountability helps, assign a quick check-in with someone who will review results. A 5-minute update forces clarity and makes small actions matter. External accountability increases follow-through and improves the quality of the experiments you run. Prepare fallback plans for the most likely failures of your micro steps. Anticipating predictable obstacles keeps you from being surprised and allows swift pivots. Fallbacks do not need to solve everything. They just need to keep momentum alive so you can continue testing. Celebrate small wins publicly or privately to reinforce the behavior. Marking progress prevents discouragement and strengthens your willingness to break future decisions into steps. Recognition anchors habit formation. Remember that speed is not the same as quality. Micro steps aim for fast informative moves, not for hurried perfection. Slowness in evaluation and speed in testing create wise progress. Use thresholds to know when to scale from small steps to larger commitments. Define the data milestones that justify a bigger investment. When those milestones are met, escalate resources and broaden scope. This staged scaling preserves caution while allowing growth. Practice mental rehearsals of the first 2 steps before pressure arrives. Visualizing the first moves reduces hesitation when action is required and increases the chance you will begin immediately. Keep the language of your plan concrete. Replace vague verbs like consider or explore with precise tasks such as call site A, draft version 1, or test price X. Concrete language narrows ambiguity and speeds execution. Lastly, commit to moving even when certainty is incomplete. The purpose of breaking decisions into controllable steps is to allow forward motion without full knowledge. Iterative action supported by clear feedback beats perfect planning that never leaves the page. When you learn to choose the next small step well, you transform uncertain decisions into a sequence of solvable problems and build steady progress that compounds over time. Chapter Hunte. Use mental checklists to avoid mistakes under pressure. Mistakes under pressure are avoidable when your mind has a clear plan to follow. High-pressure situations are fertile ground for error because the mind becomes distracted by fear, urgency, and emotion. Even experienced individuals fail not from lack of knowledge, but from missing a simple step or forgetting a critical element. Mental checklists act as protective frameworks, keeping attention aligned with priorities and preventing oversight. They transform scattered thinking into disciplined action without slowing response. When pressure rises, having a mental sequence ready allows decisions to be executed consistently and accurately. Begin by identifying recurring high-stakes situations in your life. These are moments where errors are costly and attention is taxed. Examples include making financial decisions, negotiating important agreements, responding to crises, or handling critical work tasks. Recognizing these scenarios allows you to build tailored mental checklists that anticipate common pitfalls. Each checklist should focus on steps that have caused problems in the past and on safeguards that prevent repetition of those mistakes. Construct each checklist with a clear sequence. Order matters because following a logical progression reduces cognitive load. Start with information verification, then evaluate options, consider consequences, and finalize the action. Breaking the process into distinct phases creates mental anchors. During pressure, your mind can run the sequence almost automatically, freeing resources for judgment rather than remembering steps. Keep mental checklists short and actionable. Lengthy lists create cognitive friction and increase the chance of skipping items. Ideally, a checklist should have 5 to 7 critical steps. Each step should be precise, phrased as a clear action, and easy to visualize mentally. Short, specific items are more likely to be executed consistently when stress rises. Train yourself to internalize checklists before high-pressure moments arrive. Rehearse them mentally during calm periods. Visualization strengthens recall and builds confidence. By practicing the sequence repeatedly, it becomes a reflex under stress rather than a deliberate effort. Automaticity is the key to reliability in critical situations. Use checklists to counter emotional bias. Pressure often distorts perception, exaggerating risks or skewing priorities. Each step in the checklist serves as a reminder of facts, constraints, and key objectives. When fear or excitement rises, referring to the mental sequence ensures that decisions remain aligned with reality rather than emotion. Checklists also reduce impulsive actions. When the mind wants to jump to conclusions or respond immediately, the checklist introduces a micro pause for evaluation. This pause does not slow you unnecessarily, it creates structured speed. Actions taken after running through a checklist are faster, clearer, and less likely to be regretted. Incorporate decision validation into your checklist. Include a step to quickly verify that the choice aligns with your top priorities, values, or goals. This reduces errors caused by distraction or urgency. Asking, does this action advance the main objective? Ensures every step serves purpose and prevents wasted effort. Use checklists to manage complexity. Large or multi-faceted decisions overwhelm memory and increase the risk of missing details. Break the task into a sequence of essential actions. Mentally ticking off each item guarantees nothing critical is skipped. Over time, these sequences can become frameworks applied to new challenges, making the mind naturally disciplined in unfamiliar scenarios. Pair mental checklists with visual or physical cues whenever possible. Seeing a step in written form on a monitor or on a small card reinforces memory under pressure. Even brief glances during a high-stakes situation enhance adherence to the checklist. Cues prevent shortcuts driven by stress from undermining the process. Adapt checklists for contingency planning. Include steps that account for common unexpected outcomes or obstacles. Anticipating potential disruptions ensures that you can respond effectively without derailing progress. This forward-looking approach reduces surprise and maintains control. Checklists also improve communication during critical interactions. Mental sequences can include reminders to clarify assumptions, confirm understanding with others, or summarize key points. These steps prevent miscommunication, which is a frequent source of mistakes under stress. Structured interaction ensures alignment and prevents errors caused by rushed discussion. Review the effectiveness of your checklists regularly. After a high-pressure event, reflect on which steps worked, which were skipped, and what could be added or simplified. This feedback loop sharpens the checklist, making it more effective for future situations. Continuous refinement turns the mental framework into a living tool that grows with experience. Avoid rigidly following checklists when adaptation is required. Mental sequences are guides, not chains. Include a step to assess whether the current conditions demand modification of the process. Flexibility embedded within structure ensures resilience while maintaining accuracy. Checklists help distribute cognitive effort. By offloading memory for routine verification or sequential actions, the mind can focus on judgment, strategy, and creative problem solving. Pressure amplifies the value of this cognitive economy as attention becomes the most limited resource. Include steps to prevent oversight caused by fatigue. High-pressure moments often coincide with tiredness, hunger, or stress. Checklist items like pause and verify facts, or confirm understanding with team, safeguard performance when concentration is reduced. Simple reminders preserve accuracy under physical and mental strain. Pair checklists with a brief mental reset. Before executing each step, take a single controlled breath to center attention. This combination of physical and mental routine enhances clarity and prevents rushed errors. Resetting focus between items is a subtle yet powerful enhancer of performance under pressure. Mental checklists also reinforce discipline. Consistently following the same reliable sequence builds confidence and reduces hesitation. Confidence under stress is both practical and psychological. When the mind trusts the checklist, indecision and second-guessing diminish. Checklists can extend to ethical or value-based considerations. Include a step that verifies the action aligns with your principles. Pressure often tempts compromise. Explicitly confirming alignment prevents ethical mistakes that have long-term consequences beyond immediate outcomes. Use checklists to streamline learning from mistakes. Each completed checklist provides data. When an error occurs, comparing the sequence to intended execution reveals exactly where deviation caused failure. This granular feedback accelerates improvement, transforming errors into powerful learning moments. Develop situational variations of your mental checklists. Different types of pressure require slightly different sequences. For example, handling a financial decision might emphasize verification and calculation, while an interpersonal decision emphasizes understanding and confirmation. Tailoring checklists ensures relevance and efficiency. Checklists prevent overcomplication. Under stress, the mind tends to inflate minor details. A clear sequence filters noise, highlighting what is essential. By following the checklist, you act on what truly matters rather than reacting to distractions or assumptions. Include a final verification step in every checklist. Pause to confirm that all critical elements are addressed before concluding the decision. This step minimizes the chance of last-minute regret and reinforces accountability. Teach yourself to mentally rehearse the checklist in advance of potential high-pressure moments. Even imagining a scenario and running through the sequence prepares the mind to respond efficiently. Pre-activation of neural pathways strengthens performance when real stakes appear. Checklists enhance speed as well as accuracy. While it may seem counterintuitive, disciplined repetition reduces hesitation and cognitive load, allowing rapid execution without sacrificing quality. Well-rehearsed sequences enable swift decisions even when uncertainty and stress are high. Ultimately, mental checklists transform pressure from a source of mistakes into a structured framework for reliable action. They reduce cognitive overload, manage emotion, and safeguard priorities. By committing to consistent use, practicing rehearsal, and refining sequences, performance under stress becomes predictable, disciplined, and aligned with long-term goals. Mastering this approach builds trust in yourself and ensures decisions remain precise, deliberate, and resilient in the most challenging circumstances. Chapter 11. Train daily focus to strengthen judgment in chaos. Focus is the single most powerful skill you can train to maintain clarity when chaos surrounds you. Every day the mind is bombarded with distractions, notifications, and constant pressure to respond immediately. Chaos is not an exception, it is the default environment of modern life. When pressure rises, judgment falters because attention fragments. Strengthening focus is not optional, it is essential for making correct decisions, preserving energy, and maintaining control. Daily focus training builds the mental resilience required to stay calm, deliberate, and accurate even when everything around you is uncertain or urgent. Begin by identifying your primary attention anchors. These are the few elements that truly matter in your work, relationships, and personal goals. Clear anchors reduce mental wandering because they provide a reference point when external noise increases. Without anchors, focus is scattered and every small disruption feels critical. Knowing your anchors makes it easier to return to what matters even when distractions pull relentlessly. Create structured blocks of uninterrupted work daily. Even 30 minutes of undisturbed focus compounds dramatically over weeks. During these blocks, eliminate notifications, silence devices, and choose a single task. The purpose is not speed, but total engagement with the task at hand. This practice strengthens the ability to maintain attention under pressure by creating repeated, controlled experiences of deep concentration. Use sensory cues to reinforce attention. Light, sound, and posture all influence cognitive engagement. Working in consistent conditions trains the mind to recognize when it is time to focus. Even small adjustments, like facing away from distractions or sitting upright, improve sustained attention. Physical habits shape mental habits, and a predictable environment primes the brain for clarity. Practice micro-focus exercises to condition rapid attention shifts. For example, scan a paragraph and summarize key points within 30 seconds, or observe surroundings and mentally note 10 details in sequence. These short exercises teach the brain to extract essential information quickly and to resist irrelevant noise. Repeated practice strengthens neural pathways that govern concentration and alertness. Incorporate breathing or grounding routines before intense work. Calm breathing anchors the mind, reduces scattered thoughts, and stabilizes emotional responses. Even a few deep breaths signal to the nervous system that focus is intentional rather than reactive. This pre-focus routine prepares both mind and body to process information clearly. Train selective attention through prioritization drills. Daily, choose 3 tasks that carry the most impact and commit to completing them before shifting attention elsewhere. The exercise reinforces judgment about importance under stress, habitually distinguishing high-value actions from trivial distractions prevents mental energy from leaking into inconsequential areas during crisis moments. Practice resisting automatic reactions. Begin with small provocations, deliberately pause before answering a message, interrupting the urge to react immediately. Gradually escalate to more challenging scenarios. Each pause strengthens the brain's capacity to filter irrelevant impulses and to maintain rational judgment when time is scarce. Use visualization to prepare for high-pressure situations. Mentally simulate scenarios where distractions, conflict, or unexpected changes occur. Practice sustaining attention and evaluating choices calmly. Visualization conditions the brain to anticipate chaos without losing control. When real pressure appears, the mind has already rehearsed clarity under stress. Develop a ritual to refocus when the mind drifts. When thoughts scatter, use a simple physical or mental cue, a touch on the desk, a deep breath, a phrase reminding you of your goal. Repeating this cue trains immediate recognition of distraction and the ability to redirect focus instantly. Rapid refocusing is critical for judgment under rapidly changing conditions. Incorporate reflection periods at the end of each day. Review moments of distraction and assess how attention could have been sharper. Note successes and failures without judgment. Reflection consolidates learning, making focus more resilient the next day. Awareness of patterns in attention allows proactive adjustments rather than reactive fixes. Train attention across modalities. Focus is not limited to reading or thinking. Include exercises in listening, observing, and decision-making. For example, pay close attention to conversations and summarize key points internally, or track patterns in complex tasks. Training attention improves adaptability and ensures judgment remains sound regardless of input type. Strengthen mental endurance gradually. Begin with short periods of focused activity and extend over time. Consistency is more important than intensity. Sustained attention builds resistance to cognitive fatigue, allowing judgment to remain intact even when long or stressful sessions arise. Use controlled challenges to simulate distraction. Work in mildly noisy environments or with small interruptions, practicing returning to focus quickly. Exposure to controlled chaos strengthens cognitive flexibility and prepares the brain for real-world pressure without panic. Develop a habit of breaking tasks into micro-steps during focus periods. Completing small segments reinforces concentration and provides continuous feedback. This method also teaches the brain to stay engaged without being overwhelmed by the totality of a complex task. Focus under pressure requires a sense of progress, and micro-steps supply it consistently. Pair focus training with mindfulness of emotional states. Awareness of rising anxiety, frustration, or excitement allows attention to remain deliberate. Observing emotional fluctuations without reacting preserves judgment and prevents impulsive decisions that often follow heightened stress. Maintain physical health as a support for mental focus. Sleep, nutrition, and exercise directly influence the brain's capacity to concentrate. Neglecting these fundamentals undermines even the most disciplined mental training. Daily care of the body amplifies every effort to strengthen attention and judgment. Create accountability for focus practice. Share small progress goals with a mentor, peer, or record them privately. External accountability enhances adherence and reinforces the habit of deliberate attention. Knowing someone will check progress encourages consistency. Integrate focus into routine daily decisions. Start the morning by prioritizing and executing tasks with deliberate attention. Practice attention in small, everyday contexts. This repetition creates a baseline of mental discipline that scales to higher pressure moments naturally. Avoid multitasking when training focus. Attention split across multiple activities diminishes judgment. Single tasking during practice builds the neural pathways needed to sustain attention even when multiple pressures arise. Controlled focus today becomes instinctive clarity under stress tomorrow. Introduce periodic mental breaks to prevent burnout. Structured intervals of rest preserve attention and prevent decision fatigue. Short recovery periods enhance clarity when returning to high-stakes tasks. Rest is not procrastination. It is a strategic reinforcement of cognitive endurance. Recognize that focus strengthens decision speed as well as accuracy. When attention is trained, evaluating options becomes faster because mental noise is reduced. Clear, concentrated minds respond rapidly without sacrificing judgment or quality of choice. Track improvements in focus and judgment over time. Keep a journal noting moments where sustained attention led to better outcomes or where lapses caused errors. Recording progress reinforces commitment and provides concrete evidence of growth. Reflection enhances the impact of every practice session. Finally, commit to daily consistency. Focus is not a skill acquired overnight. It is built through repeated, deliberate practice. Each day you invest in attention strengthens your ability to remain clear-headed, decisive, and accurate when the world around you becomes unpredictable and demanding. Mastery of focus creates a foundation where judgment thrives, even amid chaos. Chapter 20. Practice emotional control to think clearly when challenged. Emotions will never disappear under pressure, but mastering them allows your mind to stay sharp and make the right choices. Challenges test not just knowledge or skill, but the ability to remain composed. When fear, frustration, or anger surge, clarity often fades. Decisions made while emotions dominate are prone to error. Emotional control is not about suppression, it is about observation and deliberate management. Practicing this skill builds resilience, reduces impulsive actions, and ensures judgment remains intact even in the most demanding situations. The power to respond thoughtfully begins with recognizing what emotions are present and separating them from immediate action. Begin by naming your emotions as they arise. Identifying fear, irritation, excitement, or sadness creates awareness. Awareness prevents unconscious reactions because the mind can no longer act blindly on feeling alone. Naming emotion is the first anchor to regain rational thought. It is simple but transformative. By labeling the experience, the mind can pause and consider response instead of reflex. Learn to recognize physical cues that signal emotional escalation. Tightened muscles, rapid heartbeat, shallow breathing, and restlessness are early warnings. These bodily signals are not obstacles, they are informative. Awareness of physical signs gives time to intervene before the emotion dictates behavior. Controlling responses at the earliest stage reduces the risk of errors caused by reactive thinking. Control begins with breathing. Slow, deliberate breaths calm the nervous system, lower heart rate, and signal to the brain that immediate survival action is unnecessary. Even 3 controlled breaths create space to think clearly. This physiological adjustment forms the foundation for emotional regulation under stress. Cognitive reframing strengthens emotional control. When a situation triggers frustration, consciously reinterpret it as a challenge rather than a threat. When fear arises, view it as a signal to gather more information rather than as a barrier. Reframing does not deny reality, it redirects attention toward action and clarity rather than panic or avoidance. Practice detachment from immediate outcome in emotionally charged situations. Focus on controllable actions rather than hypothetical consequences. Pressure often inflates stakes in the mind, causing anxiety. Concentrating on what can be controlled allows the emotional surge to be navigated without compromising judgment. Establish a personal pause ritual for moments of emotional intensity. This can be as brief as a count to 5, a controlled exhale, or a mental statement such as "I will act from clarity." Ritualizing the pause trains the brain to automatically regain composure when challenge arises. Repetition embeds this habit into reflexive response. Visualization enhances control. Mentally rehearsing challenging scenarios with calm composure prepares the mind for actual events. Imagine maintaining steady breathing, clear reasoning, and deliberate action despite provocation. Mental rehearsal strengthens confidence and reduces emotional volatility when faced with real stressors. Develop a system to separate fact from feeling. Ask which part of the perception is objective and which part is influenced by emotional bias. Writing down the facts versus the emotions clarifies distinctions and prevents reactive decisions. Clear boundaries between fact and emotion improve judgment under pressure. Use incremental exposure to stressful situations as training. Gradually facing minor provocations and practicing calm responses conditions the mind to remain centered. Each successful, controlled response builds neural resilience, making higher pressure situations more manageable. Incremental exposure is effective because it reinforces confidence in one's capacity to regulate emotions. Adopt mental prompts to maintain perspective. Statements such as "I can handle this" or "focus on what matters" guide attention away from panic. Prompts act as cognitive anchors, preventing the mind from spiraling into unhelpful emotional states. Consistent use of prompts strengthens reflexive emotional control. Integrate reflection periods into daily routines. Review emotional reactions from the day. Assess how well responses aligned with rational judgment, and consider improvements. Reflection consolidates learning, making it easier to apply strategies under future pressure. Understand that emotions carry information. Frustration may indicate unmet expectations, fear may highlight risk, excitement may signal opportunity. Emotional control does not mean ignoring these signals. It means interpreting them without letting them dictate hasty action. Controlled emotions become tools rather than obstacles. Pair emotional control with micro-decisions. When small choices are made deliberately and calmly, it reinforces the mind's ability to scale composure to larger challenges. Small successes in regulation strengthen confidence and reduce susceptibility to stress-induced errors. Cultivate a daily habit of mindfulness. Paying attention to moment-to-moment experiences improves awareness of internal states. Mindfulness allows early detection of emotional shifts before they impair thinking. A consistent practice enhances both self-control and the ability to assess situations objectively under stress. Identify triggers that consistently provoke intense reactions. Awareness of recurring triggers allows preparation of specific strategies. Pre-planned responses to known stressors reduce surprises and maintain cognitive clarity. Anticipation and planning transform reactive tendencies into deliberate management. Learn to delay high-stakes decisions until composure returns when possible. Even brief delays allow emotional intensity to subside. Acting immediately while overwhelmed often magnifies errors. Patience is an expression of strength, not avoidance. In team or interpersonal settings, emotional control maintains credibility and trust. Responding calmly prevents escalation and ensures that communication is clear. Controlled responses influence others' behavior, reducing collective error and increasing effective decision-making. Develop grounding techniques for acute emotional spikes. Techniques such as focusing on sensory details, tensing and releasing muscles, or mentally scanning the environment stabilize attention and reduce panic. Grounding restores connection to present reality, facilitating logical reasoning. Use positive reinforcement to strengthen emotional regulation habits. Acknowledge moments when calm judgment prevailed despite challenge. Recognition reinforces the behavior and increases likelihood of repeated control. Over time, this feedback loop embeds emotional mastery into routine response patterns. Maintain self-compassion during training. Emotional control improves gradually. Lapses are natural and informative. Analyzing failures without judgment provides insight into weaknesses and reinforces strategies for improvement. Self-compassion prevents discouragement, which can itself impair future control. Practice visual or verbal cues that signify composure to yourself. A word, phrase, or image can trigger the mental state required for calm clarity. Repeated pairing builds conditioned responses that automatically activate focus and judgment in stressful moments. Balance emotional regulation with decisiveness. Control does not mean indecision. Practicing calm allows choices to be made efficiently rather than delayed by fear, doubt, or frustration. Decisive action combined with regulated emotion ensures both speed and accuracy under pressure. Finally, commit to daily exercises in awareness, breathing, reflection, and controlled exposure. The strength to maintain emotional control under challenge is built consistently, not spontaneously. Each day's practice compounds, embedding resilience, sharpened judgment, and the ability to respond with clarity regardless of external chaos. Mastering emotional control transforms stress from an obstacle into a stage for deliberate, confident, and effective decision-making. Chapter 13 Zen Review Outcomes honestly to improve future decisions. Every decision you make becomes far more valuable when you review the outcome with honesty and clarity. Success and failure are not simply events, they are lessons waiting to be extracted. The mind naturally resists examination, especially when outcomes are unfavorable. It wants to justify, blame, or forget. This instinct undermines growth because it prevents insight from forming. Honest review of results is not punishment, it is the most reliable method to improve judgment and strengthen future choices. Every decision contains embedded data. If you learn to see it, each mistake and success compounds into wisdom. Start by separating emotion from facts when reviewing an outcome. Pride, regret, or frustration can distort memory, exaggerating certain aspects and minimizing others. Record the sequence of events, actions taken, and observable results objectively. This factual foundation allows you to evaluate cause and effect without interference from bias. Without clarity in what actually happened, lessons are missed and errors are repeated. Analyze decisions at multiple levels. Examine both the immediate outcome and long-term effects. Ask whether the initial goal was achieved and how the broader context was influenced. Immediate results may be misleading if they obscure delayed consequences or secondary impacts. A layered review ensures a complete understanding of the decision's effect. Identify assumptions made during the decision process. Many errors occur not in execution but in the mental models that guided the choice. Were the assumptions about timing, risk, or resources accurate? Did expectations match reality? Recognizing faulty assumptions is critical because it allows you to adjust future reasoning before making similar decisions again. Separate controllable factors from external circumstances. A decision may fail due to elements outside your control. Recognizing this prevents unnecessary self-blame and clarifies which aspects can be improved next time. Focusing on controllable factors strengthens agency and prevents stagnation caused by overemphasis on luck or circumstance. Pinpoint the actions that directly influenced outcomes. Distinguish between steps that created meaningful progress and those that were distractions or wasted effort. Understanding which actions had the greatest impact allows you to replicate effective behavior and avoid repeating unproductive ones. This step builds efficiency in decision-making over time. Examine timing and sequencing. Consider whether the order in which you executed steps affected results. Often, minor changes in timing dramatically alter outcomes. Awareness of this relationship allows future choices to be executed more strategically, increasing likelihood of success even in complex situations. Ask honest questions about your mindset during the decision. Were you reactive or deliberate? Were emotions high or managed? Did fear, excitement, or overconfidence influence judgment? This introspection uncovers patterns that affect decision quality and allows you to strengthen emotional control for subsequent choices. Include perspectives from trusted peers when appropriate. Outside viewpoints provide insight you may miss due to familiarity, bias, or emotional attachment. Feedback can reveal blind spots and validate observations. Seeking multiple perspectives fosters comprehensive understanding and prevents overconfidence in self-assessment. Document insights clearly and systematically. Create a log of decisions, outcomes, assumptions, and lessons learned. This written record becomes a personal reference library, allowing you to detect trends over time. Documentation prevents knowledge from remaining implicit and makes future analysis faster and more accurate. Develop a habit of identifying repeatable strategies. Patterns often emerge across multiple decisions. Recognize approaches, rules, or techniques that consistently yield positive results. Standardizing these approaches reduces cognitive load and enhances consistency under pressure. Conversely, note strategies that consistently fail to refine or abandon them. Quantify results whenever possible. Numbers provide objectivity and reveal patterns that intuition may miss. Measure time, cost, success rate, and impact. Quantitative evaluation strengthens analysis and provides a concrete basis for improvement rather than relying solely on subjective judgment. Assess risk management in your decision-making. Did you anticipate potential pitfalls effectively? Did mitigation strategies work as planned? Reviewing how risk was handled ensures that future choices are informed by real experience. Improving resilience under uncertainty. Analyze information processing during decision-making. Consider whether relevant data was overlooked, misinterpreted, or overweighted. Identify gaps in understanding or analysis. Strengthening this aspect reduces errors from incomplete or biased reasoning. Developing systems to check and validate information becomes a protective habit against repeating mistakes. Reflect on communication and collaboration aspects. If decisions involved others, examine whether instructions, coordination, or dialogue influenced outcomes. Effective decisions often require alignment. Recognizing breakdowns in communication provides actionable lessons for future teamwork and leadership situations. Pay attention to decision fatigue. Consider whether cognitive overload, stress, or time pressure affected judgment. Recognizing patterns of diminished performance allows you to plan critical decisions when mental clarity is highest, reducing avoidable errors. Evaluate contingency planning. Did you anticipate alternative scenarios? Did backup plans function effectively? Honest assessment of contingency readiness ensures better preparation for similar high-pressure circumstances in the future. Acknowledge what went well. Balanced review includes recognizing correct actions and successful judgment. Celebrating accurate decisions reinforces confidence, solidifies effective behavior, and encourages repetition of strong choices. Growth is maximized when you integrate both positive and corrective feedback. Apply lessons immediately to reinforce learning. Insights are only powerful if they change future behavior. Adjust processes, mental models, or strategies based on the review. Implementation turns reflection into action, ensuring that the same mistakes are not repeated and that effective practices become habitual. Commit to continuous cycles of review. Decision improvement is not a one-time activity. Regularly examining outcomes, learning from patterns, and refining processes compounds judgment over time. The discipline to review honestly accelerates skill development, sharpens intuition, and strengthens confidence under pressure. Finally, embrace honesty as a tool for mastery. Avoid excuses, rationalizations, or selective memory. Honest assessment is uncomfortable at first, but essential for growth. Each authentic review transforms experience into reliable knowledge, ensuring that future decisions are made with insight, clarity, and higher probability of success. Consistent practice of reviewing outcomes honestly converts every choice, whether success or failure, into fuel for smarter, more decisive, and more resilient decision-making. Chapter 4: Build confidence through preparation, repetition, and honest feedback. Confidence is not born from luck or innate talent. It is built through deliberate preparation, consistent repetition, and honest feedback. Every person faces moments when doubt threatens to paralyze action, when uncertainty clouds judgment, and when fear makes hesitation feel safe. Confidence is the antidote to these moments, but it is rarely spontaneous. It emerges from a foundation of practice, the repeated testing of skills, and an unflinching willingness to see reality as it is. Preparation provides the structure for action, repetition solidifies competence, and honest feedback illuminates gaps that must be addressed. Together, they form a cycle that steadily strengthens self-assurance and decision-making under pressure. Preparation begins with clarity. Understand exactly what you aim to accomplish, the skills required, and the likely challenges you will face. The mind performs best when it knows the terrain. Vague goals breed anxiety because uncertainty leaves space for fear and indecision. By clearly defining objectives and required steps, you create a roadmap that reduces guesswork and builds confidence before action begins. Break larger tasks into smaller, manageable units during preparation. When a challenge seems enormous, the mind instinctively doubts its capability. Dividing it into sequential actions makes progress tangible. Completing each small step reinforces competence, demonstrating repeatedly that challenges can be handled. This incremental success is a foundation for growing belief in your ability to meet larger demands. Repetition is the engine of mastery. Skills, strategies, and decision-making processes are reinforced through consistent practice. Each repetition strengthens neural pathways, reducing hesitation, improving efficiency, and building automaticity. Confidence is not just a mental state, it is a physical sensation embedded in habits and muscle memory. The more you rehearse under controlled conditions, the more naturally confident you act when real pressure arises. Simulate realistic scenarios during repetition. Mental or physical rehearsal should mirror the conditions of actual high-pressure situations. Include time constraints, distractions, or unexpected variables. Practicing in conditions similar to reality ensures that confidence translates to action, not just theory. Repetition without context leaves the mind unprepared for the stress of real challenges. Integrate deliberate reflection into repetition. After each practice session, assess what went well and what needs improvement. Without reflection, repetition risks reinforcing errors. Honest review ensures each cycle of practice moves you closer to competence rather than reinforcing mistakes. Feedback, whether self-assessed or from others, is critical for refining skills and boosting genuine confidence. Seek feedback actively and receive it with openness. Honest criticism illuminates blind spots that cannot be detected internally. Avoid defensiveness. Approach feedback as a tool for improvement. Consistently integrating corrective input accelerates learning and prevents repeated errors that undermine confidence. Feedback also confirms strengths, reinforcing belief in your abilities when used constructively. Prepare mentally for setbacks. Confidence is not the absence of doubt or failure, it is the capacity to continue effectively despite them. Anticipating mistakes, rehearsing recovery strategies, and visualizing successful outcomes builds resilience. Confidence grows when the mind knows it can recover from errors and continue forward. Anchor preparation with routine. Daily or regular structured practice creates predictability that stabilizes confidence. Habits reduce cognitive load because actions become automatic, leaving space for judgment and strategy. Routine repetition solidifies competence, providing a steady base of assurance during unpredictable situations. Develop rituals that reinforce readiness. Simple routines before tasks, reviewing key points, stretching, taking focused breaths, signal to the mind and body that it is prepared. Rituals condition a state of focus and calm, allowing confidence to emerge naturally rather than being forced. Test skills in progressively challenging conditions. Gradually increasing complexity and stakes ensures that confidence is built on genuine capability. Avoid seeking comfort in easy scenarios, as this produces only superficial assurance. Real confidence requires proving competence repeatedly in situations that stretch abilities. Track progress objectively. Recording achievements, improvements, and lessons learned provides evidence of growth. Tangible proof of skill development reinforces confidence more effectively than self-talk alone. Monitoring progress creates motivation to continue preparation and repetition, and validates effort invested. Balance confidence with humility. True assurance is rooted in competence, not arrogance. Recognize limitations while trusting in your ability to adapt, learn, and execute. Humility keeps the mind open to feedback, which is essential for continuous growth. Overconfidence without preparation undermines performance under pressure. Visualize successful performance regularly. Imagining clear execution of skills and decisions reinforces the belief that success is achievable. Visualization strengthens neural pathways and complements physical rehearsal, making the mind more accustomed to confident, effective action. Create contingency plans as part of preparation. Knowing alternative paths and strategies reduces uncertainty, which directly supports confidence. When the mind understands how to respond to unexpected developments, fear diminishes, and decisive action becomes possible even under pressure. Repetition should emphasize quality over quantity. Each practice session must be deliberate, focused, and reflective. Mindless repetition does not build competence or confidence. It only ingrains habits, some of which may be flawed. Deliberate, high-quality repetition reinforces correct performance and strengthens belief in one's capability. Combine feedback with actionable adjustments. Receiving feedback is insufficient if changes are not implemented. Corrective measures must be integrated into subsequent practice, creating a cycle of continuous improvement. Each improvement validates effort, building self-assurance incrementally. Prepare both mentally and physically. Confidence relies on the integration of body and mind. Fatigue, poor health, or lack of energy undermines self-assurance, no matter how well skills are rehearsed. Regular maintenance of physical condition supports mental readiness, enabling clarity and decisive action under stress. Recognize that confidence is a habit formed over time. It is not sudden or permanent. Daily commitment to preparation, repetition, and honest feedback compounds, gradually transforming nervousness or hesitation into steady assurance. Persistence is more powerful than natural talent in cultivating dependable confidence. Finally, embrace challenges as opportunities to reinforce confidence. Each test of skill or judgment is a chance to practice, receive feedback, and strengthen mastery. Confidence grows through action, reflection, and adjustment, creating a cycle where preparation and repetition lead to reliable performance, and honest feedback ensures constant refinement. Mastery of this cycle allows the mind to remain calm, decisive, and resilient in the face of any high-pressure situation. Chapter 15 and simplify options to reduce overwhelm and mental fatigue. Clarity comes from reducing complexity and focusing only on what truly matters. When faced with too many choices, the mind becomes fatigued, indecision grows, and errors increase. Every option adds weight to mental processing, consuming energy that could otherwise be applied to precise, deliberate action. Simplifying options is not about ignoring possibilities, it is about filtering what is relevant, actionable, and aligned with your priorities. By reducing unnecessary alternatives, the mind can function with clarity, speed, and confidence, even under high pressure. Begin by identifying the primary objective of the decision. Understanding the ultimate goal immediately eliminates choices that do not contribute meaningfully. When the end is clear, evaluating options becomes straightforward because irrelevant possibilities are discarded before analysis. Simplification starts with defining the outcome you genuinely seek. Categorize options into essential and non-essential. List every potential path, then evaluate each against its impact on the desired goal. Non-essential choices consume attention without producing value. By removing them, the mental load decreases, making it easier to weigh and choose effectively. This exercise forces prioritization and prevents the mind from being trapped in indecision. Use decision criteria to filter remaining options. Establish concrete standards for selection, such as time efficiency, cost, or probability of success. Options failing to meet criteria are set aside. Predefined criteria reduce subjective hesitation and create a framework for rational evaluation under pressure. Clear rules eliminate wasted deliberation and support swift, accurate judgment. Break complex decisions into sequential steps. Large decisions often appear overwhelming because the brain tries to process everything simultaneously. Dividing them into smaller, controllable actions allows each step to be addressed independently. This approach reduces anxiety, prevents fatigue, and ensures consistent clarity throughout the decision-making process. Limit the number of options actively considered at one time. Cognitive overload occurs when attention spreads across too many possibilities. Focus on the most promising 3 to 5 choices, ignoring peripheral alternatives temporarily. Narrowing focus improves concentration, accelerates assessment, and minimizes the risk of errors caused by scattered attention. Adopt elimination methods to simplify further. Ask which options are impractical, unnecessary, or redundant. Removing clearly unsuitable choices early accelerates decision-making and reinforces confidence. Simple elimination is a powerful tool because it provides immediate mental relief and reduces stress. Consider consequences systematically. For each remaining option, evaluate likely outcomes, risks, and benefits. Focus only on meaningful differences rather than trivial distinctions. Comparing essentials only saves mental energy and supports clearer thinking. This disciplined evaluation ensures that the mind prioritizes what matters most under pressure. Apply the 80-20 principle. Recognize that a small number of options typically produce the majority of desirable results. Direct attention to the high-impact alternatives while deprioritizing minor variations. By concentrating on what generates the most significant effect, mental fatigue decreases and decisiveness increases. Use time limits to force simplification. Extended deliberation encourages overthinking and consideration of marginal options. Setting a deadline creates focus, reduces indecision, and encourages prioritization of meaningful choices. Pressure applied strategically strengthens clarity rather than undermining it. Rely on core principles or rules to guide decisions. Personal values, objectives, or strategic guidelines act as filters that simplify evaluation. Aligning choices with established principles automatically eliminates irrelevant or conflicting options. Simplifying decisions in this way preserves mental energy and ensures consistency across situations. Visualize outcomes rather than analyzing every detail. Mental simulations allow rapid assessment of probable success or failure without exhaustive comparison. Focus on the most likely scenarios to guide choice efficiently. Visualization reduces cognitive load while still providing insight into potential results. Practice making fast decisions in low-stakes situations to train simplification. By intentionally limiting options and evaluating only essentials, the brain develops the habit of efficient choice. Training in minor contexts strengthens the skill, ensuring that under high stakes, overwhelm does not impair judgment. Document recurring decision patterns. Recognize situations where certain options consistently lead to favorable results. Standardizing responses for familiar scenarios eliminates unnecessary evaluation and simplifies future decisions. Over time, patterns reduce cognitive effort and increase confidence in high-pressure moments. Use external constraints to aid simplification. Budget limits, time restrictions, or resource availability naturally reduce viable options. Leveraging constraints prevents analysis paralysis and forces prioritization of what is achievable. Constraints turn potential overwhelm into structured clarity. Delegate or seek expertise when possible. Some decisions require specialized knowledge. Relying on experts narrows choices to realistic and informed options, saving mental energy. Simplification is not isolation, it is efficient use of resources and awareness of limitations. Review past decisions for lessons on simplification. Analyze times when excessive options caused fatigue or errors and identify successful strategies for narrowing focus. Learning from experience strengthens the ability to reduce mental load proactively. Focus on actionability rather than theoretical perfection. An option that is possible but impractical does not contribute to clarity. Prioritize choices that can be executed effectively. Actionable focus prevents stagnation caused by endless contemplation of minor differences. Maintain awareness of mental state during decision-making. Fatigue, stress, or emotional disturbance inflates perception of complexity. Pause, breathe, and recalibrate if overwhelm arises. Simplification is more effective when the mind is calm and attentive rather than reactive. Commit to practicing option reduction consistently. The skill of identifying essentials, eliminating extraneous choices, and prioritizing effectively is cultivated through repetition. Daily reinforcement ensures that in high-pressure situations, the mind naturally seeks clarity, reduces fatigue, and focuses only on what truly matters. By consciously simplifying options, decisions become faster, more confident, and more accurate. The brain thrives when unnecessary complexity is removed. Reducing mental clutter transforms overwhelming situations into manageable challenges, allowing clarity to emerge, focus to sharpen, and effective action to occur without hesitation. Chapter 16. Strengthen resilience by accepting pressure without panic. Pressure is inevitable, but responding with calm strength turns challenges into opportunities for growth. Resilience is not about avoiding stress, it is about meeting it with clarity, composure, and confidence. Every person experiences moments when external demands, time constraints, or high stakes threaten to overwhelm judgment. Panic is the natural reaction when the mind interprets pressure as a threat rather than a challenge. Strengthening resilience requires accepting pressure without allowing fear, anxiety, or frustration to dictate behavior. This acceptance transforms pressure into a tool for performance rather than a source of paralysis. Begin by recognizing that pressure is not an enemy. It is a constant part of life and work, and the mind often misjudges it as unmanageable. Viewing pressure as a neutral force allows the brain to allocate resources effectively instead of triggering panic responses. Acceptance means acknowledging reality clearly, seeing the stakes, and understanding that the situation is surmountable with deliberate action. Focus on control over reaction rather than control over external events. Panic arises when the mind attempts to manage outcomes it cannot guarantee. By concentrating on what you can influence, choices, preparation, and actions, you preserve energy and mental clarity. This shift in focus strengthens resilience because it directs effort where it is most effective. Develop a daily practice of controlled exposure to manageable stress. Small, repeated experiences with mild pressure conditions the mind to respond calmly. For instance, intentionally completing tasks under time constraints or simulating challenging scenarios builds familiarity with stress. Gradual exposure trains the nervous system to remain steady and prevents overreaction when real high-pressure situations occur. Anchor composure through physical awareness. Tension, rapid heartbeat, and shallow breathing are early signs of stress escalation. Observing these signals without judgment allows intervention before panic takes over. Techniques such as slow breathing, posture adjustments, or brief grounding exercises stabilize the body and mind, reinforcing resilience in the moment. Mental rehearsal reinforces acceptance. Visualizing high-pressure scenarios while practicing calm, deliberate responses creates neural pathways for composed action. Rehearsal reduces novelty, and the brain interprets pressure as familiar rather than threatening. Confidence emerges naturally when the mind has experienced pressure without panic. Focus on one controllable task at a time under pressure. Multitasking or anticipating all possible outcomes simultaneously can overwhelm cognitive resources. By narrowing attention to the immediate step, the mind remains functional and decision-making remains accurate. Breaking complex pressure situations into sequential actions strengthens resilience through manageable engagement. Use mindset as a tool to reinforce acceptance. Replace fear-based thoughts with constructive statements such as "this is a challenge I can handle" or "I will respond deliberately." Language shapes perception. Framing pressure as a challenge rather than a threat fosters calm persistence and prevents escalation into panic. Strengthen resilience through reflection on past successes under pressure. Recall moments when composure produced positive results. Analyzing strategies that worked reinforces confidence and provides evidence that pressure can be managed effectively. Memory of success under stress serves as a mental anchor in future high-pressure situations. Build routines that integrate resilience into daily life. Habits of preparation, focus, and emotional regulation create automatic responses when pressure arises. Routine reduces uncertainty and ensures that calm, structured action becomes the default rather than a conscious effort under duress. Learn to accept mistakes and uncertainty as part of the process. Pressure often intensifies when the mind demands perfection. Recognizing that errors are temporary and recoverable diminishes fear. Resilient individuals act decisively while adapting to unexpected developments without succumbing to panic. Incorporate problem-solving frameworks to manage pressure systematically. Structured approaches provide clarity, reduce mental clutter, and guide action logically. Knowing how to approach challenges step by step reduces overwhelm and strengthens confidence in the face of urgency. Practice mindfulness to maintain awareness of the present. Panic often arises when the mind fixates on potential negative outcomes or distant consequences. Staying grounded in the immediate moment allows clear assessment and deliberate action. Mindfulness reinforces resilience by preventing runaway fear and conserving mental energy for productive thinking. Use incremental challenges to measure progress in resilience. Gradually increasing the intensity of high-pressure experiences allows the mind to adapt without being overwhelmed. Each successfully managed scenario reinforces belief in capability and reduces the likelihood of panic in future situations. Balance stress with recovery. Mental fatigue amplifies reactions to pressure, making panic more likely. Integrating regular rest, reflection, and relaxation strengthens endurance and maintains composure. Resilience is not about constant resistance. It is about the capacity to recover quickly while sustaining performance under repeated demands. Leverage visualization of successful responses to reinforce confidence. Mentally rehearsing composed reactions in demanding situations trains the brain to associate pressure with competence rather than fear. Visualization strengthens neural connections for calm decision-making, ensuring readiness when actual stress occurs. Recognize the distinction between pressure and panic. Pressure is a situational force. Panic is a psychological response. Understanding this separation allows deliberate intervention. Observing the rise of panic and consciously redirecting focus to immediate actions transforms vulnerability into controlled performance. Cultivate supportive habits that buffer pressure. Physical conditioning, healthy nutrition, and sleep all increase capacity to handle stress. A well-maintained body sustains the mind, reducing susceptibility to panic and enhancing clarity under demanding conditions. Resilience grows when mental and physical systems are aligned and robust. Establish personal rituals for high-pressure moments. Specific routines such as breathing exercises, reviewing priorities, or brief mental affirmations create predictable anchors. Rituals provide stability and a sense of control, allowing the mind to operate under pressure without being overwhelmed. Finally, commit to lifelong practice in facing pressure deliberately. Resilience is not static, it strengthens with consistent engagement, reflection, and adaptation. Accepting pressure without panic is a skill honed through repeated exposure, disciplined preparation, and intentional mental training. Each challenge navigated calmly reinforces the ability to perform decisively, maintain clarity, and thrive under circumstances that would overwhelm those untrained in this essential art. Chapter 17 Set decision deadlines to prevent endless overthinking. Indecision wastes time, energy, and opportunity, and setting firm deadlines transforms hesitation into action. Overthinking is one of the greatest barriers to effective decision-making. The mind can endlessly weigh options, anticipate outcomes, and imagine risks, but without closure, this mental activity rarely produces results. Each moment spent in hesitation reduces momentum, increases stress, and clouds judgment. A decision deadline is a tool that converts analysis into action, providing structure that forces clarity and promotes timely execution. Deadlines focus attention on what matters most and prevent mental paralysis caused by endless rumination. Begin by defining a realistic time frame for each decision. The period should be long enough to gather essential information and evaluate alternatives, yet short enough to prevent procrastination. Deadlines create boundaries that encourage deliberate thinking rather than uncontrolled wandering through possibilities. When a deadline exists, the mind is directed to prioritize and act efficiently. Distinguish between decisions that require deep analysis and those that benefit from rapid action. Some situations demand careful consideration, while others benefit from speed. Assigning appropriate deadlines ensures that time investment matches the decision's importance. Balancing urgency with thoughtfulness prevents both rash mistakes and unnecessary delays. Break larger decisions into stages with individual deadlines. Complex choices can feel overwhelming when viewed as a whole. By establishing mini-deadlines for research, evaluation, and final selection, you maintain forward momentum while keeping the process organized. Each stage produces progress, reducing anxiety and the temptation to overanalyze. Prioritize information collection within the deadline. Focus only on data essential for making a confident choice. Avoid drowning in excessive details or minor distinctions that do not materially affect the outcome. Limiting information gathering within a set time frame accelerates clarity and prevents mental fatigue. Use a visible or written deadline to reinforce commitment. Writing down the cutoff date or time creates psychological accountability. When the deadline is tangible, it becomes harder to justify indefinite delay. Externalizing the deadline transforms it from an abstract idea into a concrete motivator for action. Practice decision-making under timed conditions to strengthen skill. Regular exercises where choices must be made within a set period train the mind to prioritize critical factors, trust judgment, and act decisively. Over time, the fear of deadlines diminishes and confidence in timely decisions increases. Recognize that perfection is an illusion. Endless overthinking often stems from a desire to make the perfect choice. Setting a deadline shifts focus to the best possible choice given current knowledge and circumstances. Accepting that some uncertainty is inevitable prevents analysis from becoming a trap and allows momentum to continue. Implement checkpoints to monitor progress toward the deadline. Tracking steps completed, alternatives evaluated, and risks assessed ensures that the decision-making process remains structured. Checkpoints prevent distraction, maintain attention, and reinforce the urgency of the approaching deadline. Combine deadlines with priority evaluation. Determine which decisions are most critical and assign them the earliest deadlines. Lower stakes choices can have longer time frames or simplified evaluation processes. This approach channels energy to where it has the greatest impact, reducing mental overload and wasted deliberation. Anchor deadlines with accountability partners. Sharing target dates with colleagues, mentors, or peers increases commitment to timely decisions. Accountability encourages follow-through, minimizes procrastination, and provides external reinforcement for disciplined action. Use the deadline to trigger a final evaluation. As the cutoff approaches, conduct a focused review of key factors, risks, and outcomes. This structured final assessment concentrates mental effort efficiently and prevents last-minute panic or rushed errors. Deadlines convert scattered thinking into deliberate final action. Combine deadlines with simplified options. Too many alternatives can prolong decision-making indefinitely. By narrowing choices to a manageable set before the deadline, the mind can focus on evaluating essentials and selecting a path confidently. Simplification paired with timing reduces stress and accelerates clarity. Recognize the psychological impact of decision deadlines. Human cognition responds to temporal boundaries by prioritizing action, focusing attention, and reducing indecision. Deadlines harness this natural tendency, converting pressure into productivity rather than allowing it to cause paralysis. Reflect on outcomes after each deadline-driven decision. Honest review of both results and the process strengthens judgment and informs future decision timelines. Understanding how time constraints influenced effectiveness allows refinement of deadlines and increases efficiency in subsequent choices. Train intuition within deadline conditions. Frequent exposure to time-limited choices develops confidence in instinctive judgment while still incorporating critical thinking. Intuition becomes more reliable when practiced under structured temporal pressure, reducing reliance on endless analysis. Adopt flexible adjustment within the deadline framework. Deadlines should guide rather than rigidly dictate action. If new critical information arises, adjust the time frame slightly without abandoning decisiveness. Flexibility maintains responsiveness while still preventing indefinite overthinking. Balance speed with thoughtful consideration. A deadline ensures timeliness but does not replace careful evaluation. Prioritize key factors, minimize distractions, and allocate mental energy efficiently to make well-considered decisions within the allotted time. This balance maximizes both accuracy and efficiency. Recognize procrastination patterns that undermine deadlines. Awareness of habitual delay allows proactive countermeasures such as earlier start times, accountability reinforcement, or breaking tasks into smaller steps. Identifying personal tendencies strengthens the ability to meet deadlines consistently. Finally, commit to viewing deadlines as allies rather than constraints. They provide structure, prevent unnecessary rumination, and create conditions for confident action. When approached deliberately, deadlines transform potential stress into clarity, momentum, and mastery. Setting firm decision timelines trains the mind to act decisively, maintain focus, and achieve outcomes with precision even under pressure. Chapter 18. Learn from failure quickly without blame or excuses. Failure is not a signal to quit, but a signal to learn, adapt, and grow faster than before. Every person encounters setbacks, mistakes, and unexpected outcomes that challenge confidence and determination. The instinctive response is often to defend oneself, assign blame, or construct excuses. This reaction may temporarily protect ego, but it blocks insight, prolongs recovery, and prevents meaningful improvement. Learning from failure quickly requires an honest, systematic approach that focuses on understanding, adaptation, and actionable correction without judgment or denial. The speed and clarity with which lessons are extracted from mistakes determine the trajectory of growth and success. Begin by acknowledging failure without emotional overreaction. Resist the temptation to minimize, rationalize, or ignore what happened. Full acceptance of the result, whatever its magnitude, clears mental space for analysis. Without honest acknowledgement, the mind remains distracted by denial, defensiveness, or resentment, and valuable lessons are lost. Separate actions from identity. Mistakes are a reflection of choices, strategies, or preparation, not personal worth. Internalizing failure as a character flaw fosters fear and hesitation, whereas viewing it objectively enables assessment and improvement. The ability to distinguish between behavior and self-concept strengthens resilience and prevents destructive self-criticism. Analyze what led to the failure. Identify decisions, assumptions, or processes that contributed to the undesired outcome. Break the sequence down step by step to locate points of weakness or misjudgment. This methodical approach reveals patterns that can be corrected and prevents repeating the same error. Each misstep contains valuable information about how systems, strategies, or actions can be improved. Focus on controllable factors rather than external circumstances. While outside forces may have influenced the result, they do not dictate learning. Examine what could have been done differently within your sphere of control. Concentrating on actionable elements ensures that improvement comes from deliberate effort rather than frustration over circumstances beyond influence. Record lessons in a tangible form. Writing down failures, insights, and corrective strategies prevents forgetfulness and clarifies thinking. A written record serves as a reference, allowing reflection over time and comparison across experiences. This structured approach converts mistakes into a resource rather than a source of regret. Seek feedback when appropriate. Others often observe patterns or blind spots that are invisible to the individual. Soliciting constructive critique provides perspective, highlights unseen errors, and accelerates the learning process. Feedback enhances objectivity and reduces the likelihood of repeating ineffective habits. Extract specific actionable steps immediately. Define what will be done differently next time. General reflection is insufficient. Targeted adjustment is essential. By implementing corrective actions quickly, the mind associates failure with productive response rather than stagnation or rumination. Immediate application strengthens skill and reinforces confidence. Avoid self-justification or excuses. Rationalizing failure with explanations about unfair circumstances or external limitations prevents genuine insight. Honest appraisal requires leaving ego aside and focusing solely on facts, behaviors, and outcomes. Discipline in this process transforms frustration into practical knowledge that informs future choices. Develop a culture of continuous experimentation. Treat failures as experiments that test assumptions and strategies. Each result, positive or negative, provides data. This perspective removes fear from setbacks and reframes them as opportunities to refine judgment and performance. Speed in learning ensures that mistakes accelerate growth rather than hinder it. Reflect on timing and preparation. Consider whether adequate planning, information gathering, or sequencing could have prevented failure. Adjusting these elements increases readiness for future challenges and reduces the risk of repeating similar mistakes. Preparation and reflection are intertwined in the cycle of rapid learning. Separate emotion from analysis. Initial disappointment, frustration, or embarrassment is natural but must not dominate reflection. Allow brief acknowledgement of feelings, then shift focus to systematic evaluation. Calm objective review prevents reactive decisions and allows lessons to be applied more effectively. Identify patterns across multiple failures. Individual mistakes provide isolated data, but recurring outcomes reveal deeper insights. Recognizing trends allows proactive adjustment of habits, strategies, and decision-making processes. Continuous pattern recognition strengthens intuition and improves accuracy under pressure. Embrace humility as part of the learning process. Acknowledging error without defensiveness opens the mind to new approaches and strategies. Humility prevents repetition of the same errors due to overconfidence or rigid thinking and fosters adaptability and growth. Set timelines for review and adjustment. Analyzing failure without timely implementation dilutes learning. Establish clear deadlines for extracting insights, revising strategies, and taking corrective action. Structured timing ensures that lessons are integrated quickly, maintaining momentum and minimizing stagnation. Practice resilience by separating failure from identity in daily life. Daily low-stakes setbacks can be used as practice opportunities. Rapid evaluation, adjustment, and continued action in minor instances train the mind to handle major failures with composure and efficiency. Visualize alternative approaches. Mentally rehearse different strategies that could have prevented failure. Visualization strengthens problem-solving skills, prepares the mind for future obstacles, and reinforces the understanding that mistakes are opportunities to improve rather than insurmountable obstacles. Encourage a mindset of responsibility rather than blame. Focus on what can be learned and applied, not on who or what caused the failure. Responsibility empowers action. Blame only distracts and stagnates growth. Taking ownership ensures that energy is directed toward improvement rather than complaint or resentment. Integrate lessons into decision-making frameworks. Adjust rules, checklists, and strategies based on insights from failures. Each adjustment refines processes, making future choices faster, clearer, and more accurate. Structured incorporation of lessons prevents repeated errors and builds cumulative expertise. Finally, embrace failure as a catalyst for accelerated growth. When approached quickly, honestly, and without excuses, failure becomes a tool rather than a setback. Each lesson strengthens judgment, hones skills, and reinforces confidence. Rapid learning from mistakes cultivates resilience, decisiveness, and mastery, turning obstacles into stepping stones toward success. Chapter 19. Design routines that support clear thinking every day. Consistency creates clarity, and designing daily routines ensures your mind operates at peak efficiency every day. Clear thinking is not a spontaneous event. It is the result of habits, patterns, and daily practices that structure mental energy and focus. When routines support mental clarity, decisions become faster, judgment improves, and stress diminishes. Every choice, problem, or challenge encountered benefits from a mind trained through disciplined repetition and supportive habits. Establishing routines is not about rigidity, it is about creating conditions that make focused thought effortless and reliable. Start by establishing a morning routine that primes the mind. The first hour of the day sets the tone for mental performance. Begin with activities that cultivate alertness, focus, and calmness, such as stretching, light exercise, or brief meditation. Avoid immediately diving into emails or reactive tasks. A structured morning creates a mental foundation, reducing cognitive clutter before important thinking tasks begin. Incorporate deliberate planning sessions into your daily schedule. Taking time to outline tasks, priorities, and decisions early in the day prevents reactive thinking and scattered energy. Writing down objectives and anticipated challenges channels attention toward what matters most and reduces the likelihood of impulsive or poorly considered choices. Use time blocks for focused work to prevent distraction. Continuous interruptions fragment thinking and reduce problem-solving ability. Assign specific periods for critical tasks, decision-making, and reflection. During these blocks, eliminate non-essential stimuli and concentrate fully on the task at hand. Structured focus periods allow the brain to operate in a state of deep clarity. Integrate brief reflection pauses throughout the day. Short moments to evaluate progress, reassess priorities, or breathe consciously recalibrate mental resources. These pauses prevent cumulative fatigue and allow early detection of drift, confusion, or mental clutter. Reflection breaks reinforced disciplined thinking and provides space for deliberate evaluation. Develop routines for managing information intake. Limit exposure to non-essential news, social media, or distractions that overwhelm cognitive capacity. Allocate specific times for consuming information and filter for relevance. Excessive input clouds judgment, whereas curated intake supports clear, informed decisions. Schedule regular mental exercise and problem-solving activities. Treat the mind like a muscle that improves with repeated training. Engage in puzzles, strategic planning, or analytical tasks that challenge reasoning. Strengthening mental faculties daily ensures that critical thinking remains sharp when pressure or complexity increases. Use journaling or note-taking to consolidate thought. Capturing ideas, decisions, and reflections in writing clarifies thinking, frees working memory, and creates a reference for later evaluation. Daily journaling reinforces accountability, improves pattern recognition, and accelerates learning from experience. Maintain a consistent sleep and recovery schedule. Cognitive clarity is heavily dependent on rest. Insufficient sleep reduces attention, decision quality, and emotional regulation. Structured routines that prioritize sleep ensure the mind is capable of sustained focus and resilient problem solving. Incorporate regular physical movement. Exercise increases blood flow to the brain, enhances alertness, and supports emotional balance. Even brief daily activity stabilizes mood and strengthens the brain's capacity for clear, organized thought. A body maintained with discipline directly supports the mind's ability to function efficiently. Set end-of-day routines that consolidate accomplishments and prepare for tomorrow. Review completed tasks, note lessons learned, and identify priorities for the following day. Structured closure creates mental clarity, reduces anxiety about unfinished tasks, and allows the mind to rest fully. Design decision frameworks as part of daily practice. Use checklists, criteria, or simple rules to structure thinking when choices arise. Incorporating these routines into everyday life trains the brain to evaluate options quickly, consistently, and clearly under pressure. Establish routines for managing emotional state. Include techniques such as controlled breathing, brief meditation, or gratitude reflection to maintain balance. Emotional clarity is essential for logical decision-making, and consistent practice prevents feelings from clouding judgment. Use technology strategically rather than reactively. Schedule notifications, reminders, and alerts to support focus rather than interrupt it. Set clear limits for digital engagement to avoid fragmented attention. Intentional use of technology within routines enhances mental clarity and prevents distraction overload. Incorporate learning routines into daily life. Dedicate time to reading, studying, or skill development each day. Continuous intellectual engagement strengthens reasoning, expands perspective, and improves the ability to approach challenges with insight. Routines of learning sharpen judgment and foster innovation. Prepare routines for problem review and reflection after significant decisions. Analyze what went well, what could improve, and what lessons are learned. Regularly reviewing outcomes reinforces growth and strengthens the capacity for faster, clearer decision-making in future situations. Use environmental cues to support routines. Organize workspace, eliminate clutter, and maintain an environment conducive to focus. External order supports internal clarity, allowing attention to be directed toward critical thinking rather than distractions. Integrate accountability into routines. Set specific goals for focus, decision-making, or problem-solving and track progress daily. Self-monitoring reinforces discipline, provides feedback, and strengthens the habit of structured, clear thinking. Build flexibility into routines to adapt to unexpected demands. Life is unpredictable, and rigid adherence without adjustment can create stress. Design routines that provide structure yet allow quick adaptation without sacrificing clarity. Flexibility ensures resilience while maintaining consistent mental performance. Reflect weekly on routines and their effectiveness. Identify practices that enhance clarity and those that hinder it. Adjust routines based on experience and evolving goals. Continuous refinement ensures that daily structure remains aligned with the objective of sustained clear thinking. Commit to integrating clarity, supporting routines into every day without exception. Habits of planning, focus, reflection, emotional regulation, and recovery build a foundation that naturally produces sharp judgment. Daily practice transforms scattered thought into deliberate action, prepares the mind for pressure, and ensures that decisions are made efficiently with confidence and precision. When routines are designed intentionally, the mind consistently operates with heightened focus, clarity, and resilience. Daily repetition strengthens habits that prevent distraction, reduce fatigue, and enhance reasoning. Over time, these practices transform decision-making from reactive guesswork into deliberate, thoughtful action, ensuring consistent mental performance even under pressure. Chapter 28. Commit to lifelong practice of calm, decisive thinking. Calm, decisive thinking is not a talent you are born with, but a skill you must cultivate every day without fail. True mastery of thought comes from consistent practice, deliberate focus, and unwavering commitment to self-discipline. Life constantly presents moments of uncertainty, complexity, and pressure that test the clarity of your mind. In these moments, the ability to respond with calm precision separates those who act effectively from those who react impulsively. Developing calm, decisive thinking requires more than occasional effort. It demands lifelong dedication, a mindset that embraces continual growth, and the willingness to refine judgment through experience. Start by prioritizing awareness in every situation. Recognize when emotions, fatigue, or external chaos threaten to cloud judgment. Awareness is the foundation of calm thinking because it allows you to pause, assess, and choose your response rather than reacting automatically. Daily practice of observation and mindfulness strengthens this ability, gradually making calm, deliberate responses the default under stress. Integrate decision routines into your daily life. Regularly practicing structured evaluation of choices, even in low-stakes situations, trains the mind to think methodically. Use simple frameworks such as identifying priorities, evaluating risks, and considering consequences to reinforce clarity. Over time, these routines become ingrained, enabling decisive thinking even in high-pressure scenarios without conscious effort. Commit to learning from every outcome. Each choice, whether successful or flawed, provides insights that refine judgment. Review decisions honestly, noting what worked, what didn't, and why. Avoid blaming circumstances or others, and instead focus on extracting practical lessons that inform future actions. This consistent feedback loop sharpens intuition and builds confidence in decision-making. Strengthen emotional regulation as a cornerstone of calm thought. Emotions can accelerate judgment errors if left unchecked, yet they are an unavoidable part of human experience. Daily practices such as controlled breathing, reflection, and grounding exercises stabilize emotions, enabling the mind to weigh options objectively. Emotional discipline allows clarity to persist even when stress or high stakes are present. Develop mental resilience through exposure to challenge. Purposefully place yourself in situations that test your focus, adaptability, and composure. Each controlled encounter with difficulty trains the mind to maintain calm under pressure. Resilience grows cumulatively, and repeated practice ensures that stress no longer dictates the quality of thought. Prioritize clarity over speed when making decisions, but balance it with timely action. Calm, decisive thinking is not about delaying indefinitely. It is about processing information efficiently, evaluating options rationally, and acting with confidence. Lifelong practice teaches the mind to identify essential factors quickly and to move forward with precision rather than hesitation. Cultivate habits that support sustained mental performance. Proper sleep, nutrition, and physical activity directly influence cognitive capacity. A well-maintained body strengthens the mind, allowing sharper focus, quicker processing, and more consistent calmness under pressure. Integrating health-conscious routines amplifies the effectiveness of lifelong mental training. Seek continual intellectual growth. Engaging with diverse perspectives, challenging ideas, and complex problems expands the brain's capacity for analysis and judgment. Exposure to new knowledge and problem-solving scenarios strengthens flexibility of thought and improves the ability to remain composed when faced with novel challenges. Lifelong learning is essential for maintaining decisiveness and insight. Practice anticipation and preparation. Calm thinking thrives when the mind is equipped with strategies and contingencies before crises arise. By anticipating potential obstacles, gathering relevant knowledge, and rehearsing responses, you create readiness that prevents panic and accelerates decisive action. Preparation converts uncertainty into manageable conditions for clear thought. Embrace reflection as a daily habit. Spend time reviewing actions, choices, and mental processes to reinforce patterns of clear thinking. Reflection allows recognition of subtle habits that support decisiveness and exposes tendencies that may undermine clarity. Over years, these small daily reflections accumulate into profound improvements in judgment. Train the mind to tolerate uncertainty without urgency. Calm, decisive thinking does not require complete information or perfect conditions. Accepting that uncertainty is inherent allows the mind to evaluate options without rushing or freezing. Lifelong practice develops confidence in navigating ambiguity while maintaining deliberate action. Reinforce mental focus through deliberate attention exercises. Activities that demand sustained concentration, such as reading, strategy games, or analytical problem-solving, strengthen neural pathways associated with clarity. Regular focus training reduces susceptibility to distraction and enhances ability to maintain calm thought in complex situations. Use accountability to reinforce your commitment. Partnering with mentors, colleagues, or peers to review choices and progress increases motivation to practice deliberate thinking. External accountability complements internal discipline, ensuring consistent effort toward mastery. Integrate structured downtime into your routine. Periods of rest, reflection, and mental decompression prevent cognitive overload and sustain clarity. A well-rested mind reacts more calmly, processes information faster, and makes higher-quality decisions consistently. Lifelong practice balances effort with recovery to maintain long-term effectiveness. Commit to simplifying choices where possible. Overcomplication slows thought and increases stress. By reducing unnecessary options and focusing on essential variables, you strengthen decisiveness and conserve mental energy. Lifelong application of simplicity ensures clarity persists, even under pressure. Develop confidence in your judgment through repeated action. Each successful decision reinforces trust in your ability to think clearly. Confidence prevents hesitation, accelerates response time, and reduces second-guessing, all of which support calm and effective decision-making. Maintain a long-term perspective. Lifelong practice of calm, decisive thinking is cumulative. Each day of disciplined mental training contributes incrementally to mastery. Understanding that growth occurs gradually encourages patience, persistence, and resilience in the face of setbacks. Integrate systems for monitoring improvement. Keep track of decisions, reflections, and lessons learned to measure progress over time. Objective feedback enhances the ability to adjust strategies, refine mental habits, and reinforce strengths in thinking. Tracking improvement ensures practice is purposeful rather than passive. Finally, embrace calm, decisive thinking as a lifelong commitment. It is not a skill perfected in isolated moments, but a continuous journey of self-discipline, reflection, and deliberate action. Every day presents opportunities to strengthen clarity, regulate emotions, and respond to challenges with precision. Persistent dedication transforms decision-making from reactive uncertainty into consistent, confident action. Committing fully to this path ensures that the mind remains calm, focused, and capable of navigating life's pressures with mastery and insight.